Hi, everybody. My name is Mary Overbey. I am with SCORE of Kansas City, as well as SCORE of Southwest Missouri. I am very, very excited to be here today to see Solopreneurship 101. As a solopreneur myself, for the past year and a half, I'm extremely excited to learn more from our presenter today as a 20-year veteran of solopreneurship, which is like a unicorn in the solopreneur world, really. I mean, that's pretty amazing. Just to get us started, I am going to do just a little bit of an intro from SCORE so that you know a little bit more about SCORE if you're not familiar with who we are and what we do. And then I'm going to turn it over to Julie and we're going to get going. You guys are still putting your information in the chat feature. Please do that so that Julie can be reading through that while I am doing my intro, because she's seen this before, so she already knows a little bit about SCORE. But Julie, I'm going to share my screen real quick. All right, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so just a little bit about the webinar format. Most people are familiar with the meeting format, where if you don't mute yourself or put yourself, turn off your video, we can see or hear you, and potentially you're going to be recorded. We do record, however, because we're in the webinar format, you will not need to turn off your video or worry about your voice being recorded. The only two people that will be visible or heard, hooray, are me and Julie. We will be publishing this to YouTube, so you'll be able to go back and view it later. Additionally, we'll be sending out a link to that so that you'll have that in your inbox. If you do wish to ask any questions, please use the chat feature. Julie is very relationship oriented and has the chat box opened up so that she can see those questions as they're coming through. It's really difficult for presenters to just talk for a long period of time. So please do put in your questions. Julie, am I lagging on the end? Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, show mine. Okay, good. All right, here's a little bit more about just the virtual workshop hints. One thing is important, we cannot provide technical support. If you have problems on your end, we just recommend you, maybe log off and then log back on. That's typically seems to solve most of the problem. Connect to Wi-Fi directly. So if you have a modem or a box with the cord that you can directly connect, like directly, maybe HDMI in, it tends to give a better reception. Do try to find a quiet place to avoid distractions. Julie has her office space. You guys are, once again, not going to be heard or seen. And then if you are not familiar with Kansas City SCORE, we do a lot of these workshops. They have 1 to 2 a week. They do them in the evenings, on the weekends, different times of day, different days of the week. So I really encourage you to go to kansascityscore.org and see what other workshops they have and see what other learning opportunities they have, because I've been learning amazing amounts of stuff and giving myself way too much to do on my to-do list after I watch these. So the best thing and the worst thing about being a webinar host right there. All right, we're just going to play a quick video, and actually I'm going to have to stop share and then reshare because I didn't do it correctly. And I have to share my computer sound. And I do this every time. And you'd think one day I would remember. All right, let's see if we can get this to play. Yeah. All right, we're gonna skip it. So it's not. We skip.
During these difficult times, everyone's talking about survival, uncertainty, and loss.
It's normal to feel fear and uncertainty, to wonder about the future of your business. At SCORE, we're here to remind you that you're stronger than you think. You are a small business owner, the person who dared to ask, what if? The leader who had the courage to build a business. We know that disasters and economic downturns bring unprecedented challenges. But what if the worst thing that ever happened to your business was the catalyst to unlock your courage once again? SCORE is here to help you adapt to change and position your business for future growth. With our free business mentoring and resources, you'll find the courage to adapt and strength to succeed. For free educational materials, webinars, and mentoring, visit the SCORE Small Business Resilience Hub at score.org/resilience.
It's like the perfect intro for you, Julie. All right, so I just want to do a quick, knowledge grab on how we obtain speakers for our workshops. Just so everybody knows, when we do have SCORE workshop speakers, they are typically unpaid. These are volunteering their time, their knowledge, and their expertise to help benefit our SCORE clients, their clients, things like that. We do allow workshop speakers to discuss their company and services, and so Julie will do a lot more in-depth biography, the biographical sketch, and talk about her business. But they are not soliciting business from you today, and we are not recommending them just because that's outside of our ethical guidelines. Now, that does not mean that if you do not want to, you want to contact Julie after this and talk to her further, we highly, recommend that you do that. And really, we just want to thank her for her time. And I know it's worth a lot. So we always appreciate when people come in and work with us for free. So thank you, Julie.
You bet.
All right, I am going to stop sharing on my screen and allow you to start sharing on your end. And then at that point, I'm going to, unless you need anything else from me, I'm going to go silent and turn off my video so I'm not distracting, and let you go forth.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, y'all, welcome to Solopreneurship 101. Let's take a quick pulse check because, y'all, we are in the middle of a freaking pandemic, in case you haven't noticed. Unfortunately, many people have been laid off or furloughed, or some have just decided to dive in headfirst into self-employment. Whether you're here by choice or by default, whether you are just now starting a business or have been at it for a while, you're at least taking good steps to get ahead by being here today. But wait a second, you want to run your own business in the middle of a pandemic? I have some questions. You may be asking yourself, are you crazy? Your friends and family may be looking at you like, are you crazy? But I'm here to say, actually, you may not be crazy. You may actually be brilliant. Okay, now let me explain why I say that. I'm going to take a step back and explain a little bit about where the United States workforce was heading. In 2019, we had more than 30% of the US workforce was in the solopreneurship category. Whether you call it the gig economy or freelancing or self-employed, there's 101 different terms, right? But whether full-time or part-time, more than 30% last year of the US workforce was running their own business. As of 2020, it was expected that that number was to rise to 40%. And then by 2027, as the trend experts were predicting, we were supposed to hit over 50% of the US workforce, which is huge and it's amazing. So you all are on the right track. However, then COVID hit and it's like, oh, great. Now so many more people are going to be self-employed because right now there's just not a lot of jobs out there, right? So you kind of got to make ends work, or maybe even picking up a side hustle on the side and running your own business that way. So yes, we're in the middle of a pandemic, but let's take a step back and look at the silver lining. From my perspective, One thing that we have been granted through all of this is the gift of time, right? We're not commuting as much as we were back and forth to work or back and forth to client meetings or even social engagements, right? Those are totally cut down or online. So you've been granted this gift of time. What can you do with this time to get ahead in your business? We're going to talk about that today. Hi, I'm Julie Cortes, copywriter by day, freelance rockstar by night. I have run my own business for more than 22 years, writing advertising materials for ad agencies, large corporations, small businesses, design shops, you name it. What I'm probably best known for, here in Kansas City anyway, is starting an organization called the Freelance Exchange. This caters to those who are self-employed, specifically in advertising and marketing, offering continuing education and mentoring, promotional opportunities, networking opportunities, you name it. It's all kind of part of this effort. And then by default, we've become the go-to resource to find that kind of talent here in town for easy and for free. And so anyway, once I started that, I kind of became like the go-to expert in Kansas City for all things self-employment. And I started getting interviewed by newspapers and radio stations. I've been on podcasts and whatnot. And then people started asking me to go around and speak in different classrooms, universities and art schools and whatnot. And it finally dawned on me as I'm sitting there thinking, man, so many of us went to school to learn our craft, whatever it is you do, yet we didn't take business classes because either they weren't required or we didn't think we would ever need them. And yet here we are, either by choice or by default, needing to know how to run a business because we're out on our own. So yes, I created the Freelance Exchange, but now I'm like, okay, well, we got to get into the classrooms. Long story short, I developed my own course, Freelancing 101, and I've been teaching at the Kansas City Art Institute for coming up on 5 years now. Really, really love that. And a funny thing happens when you create your own course. It's like so many of your professional peers are like, Julie, I would love to sit in on your course. And I was like, sit in, haha, you're funny, right? I would love for that to happen, of course, but you got to pay. You got to come to the class, you got to enroll. Well, nobody at this stage, well, very few people at this stage really want to go back to school, and sit there alongside 20-year-olds. I get it. So then I was like, hey, Cortes, light bulb moment, why don't you open up a coaching arm to your business? So now I am coaching my fellow freelance professionals, mostly creatives, those who are self-employed in advertising and marketing, and even some of the fine arts as well. And that, again, in turn, has opened up so many more public speaking engagement opportunities for me. So yes, I do a lot of volunteer presentations, but I do pay presentations on a national and international scale. So anyway, I'm delighted to be here today. I'm delighted to share this information to you. I'm going to, Jazz says you can't hear me. Can everybody else hear me? I just want to make sure somebody respond because I can't see you or hear anybody else.
I can hear you, Julie. Can anyone else hear you?
Okay, great. Okay, Jazz, I don't know what's going on. maybe try jumping off and jumping back in.
Or unplugging. I know she's on a headset. Maybe unplugging her headset and plugging that back in, or trying it without the headset might help.
That's a great idea. Okay, so enough about me. Let's talk about solopreneurship here. Let's get into the meat and potatoes here. What does it mean to be a solopreneur, right? So it essentially means, and there's no one right answer, right? There's a bunch of great answers, there's all these pros and cons, which we'll get to in a minute, but it's essentially being your own boss and not having to go to answer to anybody else throughout the day, which is an amazing feeling, right? But there are probably 101 different terms for being a solopreneur, all right? Just for today's purpose, let's just all lump it into one, no matter what you call yourself, okay? Do you have a side hustle? Are you a one-man, one-woman shop? Are you an ad agency, but really you're one person? Are you a freelancer? Are you a moonlighter? Whatever you call yourself, right? And I'm curious to see if you all have any other terms that you would add in here, but it is what it is. Okay, we're all in it for the same reasons. We all want to be our own bosses. We all want to, make our dreams come to life. And there are specific challenges that come with that territory as a solopreneur, but of course there's great benefits too, right? So let's talk about, of course, the number one thing that is the best thing about being your own boss is freedom, right? It's freedom. You get to work on what you want, with whom you want, when you want. You get to wear what you want. You get to do things the way that you want to, which is amazing. Now, of course, you have to follow industry standards. You can't break the law. There's all that, right? But anyway, for the most part, you get to do things the way you want, which is awesome. What other pros might you think come with the territory of being your own boss? And if you'll excuse me, I am not crying, but my allergies are making my eyes water. So, okay, so what other pros do we have? I can't hear you. Feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going here. So what are the pros? You get to be your own boss. Yes, we all love that, right? Nobody's looking over our shoulders. Yes, you can work your own hours. Absolutely. You can set your own schedule, which is amazing. You can work evenings, weekends, whatever you want. You can change direction. Excellent. And you can work from wherever you want, right? You can work from home, a coffee shop. Perhaps you rent office space or a studio. Maybe you're at one of these co-working spaces. Like, you get to choose all of that. No commute time, right? Yes, absolutely. I love it when, I don't love it, but I feel sorry for my friends who get stuck in, commuting traffic in the morning or rush hour traffic. And I'm like, oh yeah, my commute with my coffee cup, right? As I shuffle down the hall to my office, I'm like, yeah, my commute was horrible too. No, it's amazing. Or if there's bad weather out, you don't have to worry about driving home on icy or snowy roads. Yeah, that part's great. That part's great. You get to choose your clients, your partners, your vendors. So awesome. Yes, you can work in your pajamas. Yes. You can choose your own projects. You can set your own policies and procedures, which we will talk about later. But you are in charge of all of this, which also means that you are in charge of your own success. You are going to be the reason whether you succeed or whether you fail. Okay, remember that. You are in charge, but that also means earnings could be unlimited. Potential could be unlimited. That's pretty cool. Okay, let me dab and say, what do you think about cons? What kind of cons come with the territory of being your own boss? You see my little sad emoji? Okay, what are the cons? Number one, no guaranteed paycheck. Of course, right? We don't have that luxury of being paid every 2 weeks or every month, no matter how business is going. Okay, no guaranteed paychecks. Sometimes we even experience this feast or famine cycle, right? Where either you're like super busy or not busy at all. Some people call it episodic income. So you have to save for a rainy day. One of the cons, Jess says, getting started and finding clients. Yes, that is definitely a challenge of it. What about no benefits? Right? No health insurance, no dental, no vision, no retirement savings, no 401k, like all of that, hopefully, you might be able to get health insurance either through the Affordable Care Act or through a spouse. But at any rate, I highly recommend having insurance in some capacity and not going without, because that's a very important thing. Okay, so keep that in mind. Also, when you work for yourself, it can be lonely. It can be very isolating. Consider too, if you're an extrovert like me, that it's really difficult if you're not around people. So you've got to figure out ways to be around people so you can get that energy that you need. You have to manage your clients, your deadlines, your budgets, all of these different things, the projects, depending on what it is you do. I know we have a variety of people doing a variety of different things, but there's a lot of things to manage. It takes a lot of self-discipline too. I will be the first one to tell you that when I first started out on my own, I didn't think I was cut out for it, but boom, here I am 20 plus years later, I got this. I got this. So mindset has a lot to do with it. And we'll talk again more about that later. And to Jazz's point, it does take time to build clientele. It's not like, boom, you open your doors and your business is, super successful, right? And you're busy. It's going to take that time. I always suggest that if you are in a position where you have a full-time job or even a part-time job and you can start building your solopreneur business on the side, that is best case scenario. Now, I realize that's not always the case, right? Somebody may lose their job, especially in today's pandemic. And you may have no other choice. If you can find a part-time job to supplement your income, even if it's online data entry from home or whatever, anything to supplement your income while you're building your business, just to take that stress off you, I am a firm believer that you ought to do that or consider that. And there's no shame in it whatsoever. Okay. Okay. So we talked about the pros, we talked about the cons, but here's one thing that often goes unlooked, and that is the O factor. I call this the O factor because essentially you are not just doing your craft or your service or selling your product. You are the CEO, CFO, CMO, COO, and any other O you can think of. You have to wear all of the hats that come with the territory of running your own business. And that also means you have to know how to run a business. Now that takes me back to my whole reason why I do what I do, is that so many of us went to school to learn our craft and not to how to run a business. My personal opinion is I think everybody, no matter what their major is, ought to be required to take a business class. Today, I feel that way. Now, if you had asked me that 25, 30 years ago, and my dad was sitting there saying, Julie, you ought to take a business class, I'd be like, oh, whatever, I don't need that. And that sounds completely boring. Now, today, knowing what I know, I would totally think that should be required, even for like dentists, right? Or anybody out there who runs any kind of business. I think it would be super helpful because you just don't know where life's going to take you. Okay. So with that said, Mary, if you would like to pop in our first poll here for the audience.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to launch it, and here we go. If you guys wouldn't mind just filling that out, this will give us a little bit better idea of how to frame the presentation.
Yeah, that'd be great. Oh, Kara, I see your note. Yeah, I just started teaching like 5 years ago. It's going really well. I love it.
I think that's all of the above.
Yeah.
I'm not finishing things and need accountability. Don't know what I'm doing. SCORE mentors as well. Hopefully you have one. I feel stuck and I'm ready to hang up my hat. We've got about half of you have voted. Get the rest, get a few more in there. Yep, got 6 of you left. We'll start calling you out. I don't know who it is, but.
I know, it's up to you.
Oh, somebody has a difficult or demanding client. Oh.
That should be on the con side of things because we have to deal with that on our ourselves.
Nobody needs help determining what to charge, Julie. Can you believe that? I want to put mine in there for that. That's always one of my issues.
I was going to say with the difficult client, one of the pros. Okay, so the con is that you have to deal with a difficult client. The pro is that you have the power to fire them. Right? You can totally walk away.
Yeah. But when you're a new business, how hard is that to learn how to do that effectively? It's really difficult. So
yeah, with grace. Yep, absolutely.
All right. 3 people said all of the above. We've got a pretty good spread for everybody. I'm going to end the poll and share those results. Awesome. I don't know what I'm doing came out number 1. Okay. So
great.
Wonderful. Julie, does that give you a little bit of room to move with on that, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay. I'm going to close this out so it's not on my board. Okay.
I'm going back to mute.
All right. Thank you all for participating. Sorry, Anne, it wasn't accessible on your phone. Didn't realize that was a thing. Now we know. Okay, so what's on tap today? As you all saw with the description of the presentation, we are going to cover simple motivation tricks, policies and procedures, pricing, estimates and invoices, as well as branding and promotions. Now, keep in mind that this is Solopreneurship 101. That means it is a general overview of everything that you ought to know. We are not going to do deep dives into accounting, let's say. Okay, so keep that in mind. This is just here's what you need to know. Here's a few quick tips, and go through SCORE or find resources elsewhere. Hopefully that helps get you in the right frame of mind. Okay, so speaking of mindset, this is what we need to do today. We need to talk about motivation, because that, I feel, is the very beginning, and it is the most important factor of anybody's success when it comes to running your own business. So that said, what we're going to do is wake up, kick ass, and repeat every single day. Well, except for weekends and holidays. But so much of getting ahead has to do with your mindset. And so how do you get yourself in the right mindset? Well, here's a few tips that I have learned over the years that really, really help. Number one, when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing I might ask you to do? Feel free to use the chat here. I eat and sleep my ideas, okay? When you get up in the morning, what's the first thing I might ask you to do or suggest that you do? No one? Check your emails. To-do list for the day. Anybody else? Breathe. Oh yeah, breathing. That's important. Yeah. You won't survive without that. Drink lots of coffee. That could be very important as well. Meditate. Good. Get your coffee or tea. Awesome. Okay. Get your hardest tasks. These are all excellent. Review today's schedule. Yes. Now they're all coming in. Okay. Excellent, excellent, excellent. But not one person got what I was thinking. Before you do any of that, as soon as you get out of bed, I'm going to ask that you make your bed. Okay? Make your bed. Just pull up the covers. You don't have to put on the fancy throw pillows or the cover blanket or whatever, or the throw blanket. Okay? Just simply make your bed. Two reasons why. Number one, you will have already accomplished something. Check that off your to-do list. I don't know if anybody actually puts that on their to-do list, but you get to feel like you've accomplished something for the today. Awesome. Okay. Number two is you will be less likely to be lured back into bed if you work from home. Think about as winter is coming and it's going to be dark and gloomy and cold out. And if you're tired and you don't have any work going on, you're going to be like, oh, that bed sounds pretty awesome right about now. Or maybe I want to work from bed because it's comfortable. Don't do it. All right. Get up and make your bed. And then go and do whatever it is your morning routine is. You eat breakfast, take the dog for a walk, exercise, pray, meditate, whatever it is that you do. Go do that. That's fine. And then make your coffee, make your tea. However, instead of going straight to your office in your pajamas, my next suggestion is to actually go shower and get ready for the day. Okay? When you shower, you get refreshed. You get to wipe that sleep out of your eyes. And then when you get dressed, okay, y'all are going to look at me like I'm crazy, and that's totally okay because this works. Get dressed for work. Don't get back into lounge clothes. Don't get back into your pajamas. Put on pants, put on shoes, act like you are working in an actual office where you would have like a 40-hour-a-week job where you would be interacting with people all the time. I kid you not, it is a subconscious thing that fools our mind into saying, I've got to go to work. Okay. And bonus, what if somebody says, hey, Julie, I want to hop on a Zoom call with you in half an hour. Can we do that? And what if I'm in my pajamas and my hair's a mess, I have no makeup on, and be like, oh gosh, there's no way I can get ready in half an hour. Now I'm ready. Or if we're in non-pandemic times and somebody wants to meet in person, I live about half an hour outside of downtown Kansas City. Maybe my client's downtown, and same thing. Hey, Julie, can you meet us in an hour? Oh gosh, no, it takes me an hour to get ready. I got to shower, do my hair, do my makeup, and then I got a half-hour commute. There's no way I'm making that. And now, yeah, sure, no problem. I'm ready to go. Okay, so that's the bonus. But the key here is to fool your mind into thinking it's going to work. I know y'all are either going to look at me like I'm crazy or brilliant. I'm really hoping it's the latter. Try it for a while. Try and make it a habit and see if you become more productive by doing these couple of things. Okay, by making your bed in the morning and by actually getting ready for the day before you go to work. When you are in work clothes, you are less likely to be lounging. Okay, so that also means find a dedicated workspace and sit upright. Okay, don't be lounging on your couch. Don't be lounging in bed. Yes, you have that opportunity because you're self-employed, and that is one of the pros, absolutely. Do you want to be more productive? Do you want to kick ass? Okay, find a dedicated workspace and act like you are going to work. There is a reason why offices have these desks set up, you know, so you're sitting upright and everything, so you'll be more productive. Okay, that said, after you figure out where you've got your dedicated workspace, set office hours for yourself. Okay. You may have the ability to work 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever the case may be, but are you actually working those hours? Now, I know some of you may be saying, well, wait a second. I don't have any paid work coming in the door, so I don't have anything to do. And you're wrong. You're wrong, wrong, wrong. There is always something that you can be doing to work on your business. Now, did you hear what I just said? Work on your business, not in your business. Work on your business. Okay. When you work in your business, that's doing the paid work. When you work on your business, that is doing administrative tasks. That is organizing, cleaning, filing, self-promotion, new business development, the stuff that doesn't necessarily pay the bills, but it will get you further ahead in the future. Jazz, your hours are 9 to 5, or 9 to 3. Fantastic. It doesn't matter what your hours are. It could be 12 to 6. It could be 12 to 3. You know, if you have kiddos and you got to work around them, no harm in that, no shame in that, but have those office hours set for yourself. Okay. That said, something else to consider incorporating into your schedule during the day is to get out of the house at least once a day, or out of the studio, out of the co-working space, whatever the case may be. Get out of the house once a day. So you are interacting with people, you are interacting with the world, and you're not so isolated anymore. And bonus, if you're like me and don't want to go anywhere except for maybe Walmart without makeup on, you'll be forced to put makeup on. Okay, this could be as simple as an errand to the post office or the office supply store, right? Or again, in non-pandemic times, it could be, hey, let's go, let me have a coffee meetup with somebody, a prospective client. Or maybe I just met somebody at this networking event and I want to follow up with them and I'm going to invite them to lunch. Whatever the case may be. You can still do that today via Zoom call, right? You can totally do that. Just make sure you're being social at least once a day. And if you can get out of the house now, great. I will tell you, especially during pandemic times and people dealing with depression and all the stress that's on us right now, but there's so much to be said for fresh air and the vitamin D coming from that sun. If you can sit outside for a few minutes, maybe play with a dog or go for a walk, right? All of that will help. The better that you feel, the more productive you'll be. Okay. Use these mindset tricks to get ahead. I really think you'll find that they help. Okay, that said, once you've learned to wake up, kick ass, and repeat, the number one thing you're going to want to do is train yourself. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we just talked about keeping office hours, and that's fantastic. That means working on your business during those hours. Let's use Jazz's example here is 9 to 3. And let's say she's got a coffee meetup in the morning. She's doing work from, I don't know, 10 to noon, and then she's got nothing on her schedule from 12 to 3. But there's still stuff to be done, right? So if she can make sure that she's in her office, or maybe even it's prospecting, you know, doing cold calls or whatever the case may be, but making sure that she's working on her business during those hours. Okay, so you train yourself. Okay, yes, I don't have anything to do, but I do have stuff to do. Okay, you got to train yourself with that. I would also pay attention to your own body clock. How many people in here are early birds? And how many people are night owls? Let's sound off in the chat. Night, yes, night owl, represent. Oh, lots of night owl. Okay, one early. Anybody else? Where are my early birds? Where are my night owls? Where you at? I feel strongest in the morning, but I like that time for myself. Yeah, good. I'm up early, but often more productive later in the day. Good. So kick-ass midday. Huh, yeah, totally. I can relate with that. Personally, I am the night owl. So if somebody wants to meet me bright and early at 8 a.m., like if they want me to go downtown, I am not awake. Like physically, yes, I'm awake, but I am like my brain doesn't function. You know, words don't form in my mouth, and it doesn't work for me. And so I really try and plan meetings for later in the day. Anything more difficult tasks later in the day. Personally, I am on fire between the hours of 3 and 6 in the afternoon for whatever reason. Maybe it's because it's after my second cup of caffeine, who knows, right? But that's when I'm on fire. I am not an early bird. The lesson here, though, is to set your schedule around the way that you work, okay? If you're not a morning person, then keep that in mind. When are you going to schedule your most difficult tasks? When are you going to be meeting with people, okay? Listen to your body and see if you can schedule that appropriately. Sometimes I wake at 5:30 a.m. Yeah, I couldn't do it. So yeah, I mean, if I can't sleep, I might grab my phone and jot notes down on it, but I won't get up because I really want to try and go back to sleep. I get it. Anyway, so pay attention to your body clock and see if you can schedule appropriately there within your office hours. Okay, you've got your dedicated workspace, you've got your office hours set, and the next thing you want to do really is try to minimize distractions. I don't know about you, but I am so easily distracted. Like my phone buzzes, it's a text, oh, social media, notification comes on, maybe on one of my little mini tabs that are open, in my web browser. I'm so easily distracted. But, every time we get distracted, it takes at least 15 minutes to regain focus. So every time we go look at something different, it's going to take us 15 minutes to get back into the swing of things. So what do? We have to try and minimize these distractions, whether it's social media or email or calls or texts or what have you. Depending on your living situation, do you have roommates or partners or spouse or kids or pets? Think about how you can train yourself to minimize those distractions by getting away, having this dedicated office space if you can, right? There's other things that easily distract us as well, whether it's, TV or video games some people play, Netflix even. And believe it or not, chores, errands, as much as many of us don't like to do those things, they still need to get done and they still call our names while we're trying to be, supposed to be working. So the key here is to, again, remember that you are working a job. You've got to treat your business like a business, not like a hobby. And that means treating it as though you are going to work at an office 40 hours a week, like any other person. So that means those chores, those errands, I don't care if it's laundry or going to the grocery store or cleaning or whatever, keep those until after hours. Tell your spouse, tell your roommate or whomever, yes, I'm happy to get those things done, but it's going to be after hours. So you train yourself first to do that. Excuse me, hang on. And then you'll tell them and hopefully get that respect from them. All of those things can take away our focus, and it's really easy to do that. So it's up to us to train ourselves to minimize those distractions. Now, that said, it's also important for us to maintain a work-life balance. This can really go either way for those who are self-employed. Some people work themselves to the bone. You got your computer, you work from home, it's easy access. You can get to it anytime you want. But is that healthy for you? No, it's not. Some people are the other way around. Oh, I work from home, I don't have to work. That's not necessarily true. So try and find that work-life balance. Set a schedule for yourself. Maybe it's you don't work evenings or weekends or holidays. And if a client demands that of you, and we'll talk about this later, then maybe you charge extra for that. But you run your own business and you're allowed to set your own hours, period. Okay. But of course, remember to allow for breaks. Take a lunch every day, take a 15-minute break, go for a walk or walk your dog or whatever. Take a vacation. So many people say to me, hey, Julie, yeah, I love going on vacation, but I cannot get away. It's just me. What if somebody calls or somebody emails? Somebody's got to answer it. I get it. I totally get it. If you can, in advance, tell your clients or customers, hey, I'm going to be out for a vacation during this time. You know, maybe you email them in advance, tell them it's coming. Hey, if you need anything before that, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll get back to you when I get back in a week or whatever the case is. But try that. Of course, you can set up your email to have an autoresponder. That's always helpful. And of course, you can check email while out of town. I'm not saying don't do that, because of course I'm guilty of that as well. If there's anything super on fire, like I can just shoot back a quick email. You know, I can refer somebody else, you know, to help them out if necessary. But having that separation is so important, so we can rest and recharge our batteries, so we can be the best possible business people that we can be when we get back into the office. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, one of the things that I see over and over again, and we experienced this just recently here in the poll, is that many people don't know what they're doing. And they don't know what they're doing because, honestly, they don't know what they don't know. There's a lot of things to know about running your business, but how do you know what you're supposed to know if nobody's taught you before, right? So it's unfortunate because many people fail because of this factor. So I encourage you to get educated as much as possible. You're here, so great first start there. But learn basic business principles. Learn what industry standards are. Learn simple practices, business practices. Learn what your legal rights are. Okay, all of these things are going to help you get ahead. Consider setting up policies and procedures for your business. Even things like, okay, you get a new client. What does that look like? How do you onboard this new client? Do you sit down and have a discovery meeting with them? Do you put together an estimate? Do you put together a contract? Do you ask for a deposit? Like, what does this all look like? Right? These are the things that you have to plan out in advance. And hopefully not make it up along the way as you're going, all right? Even things like payment policies. Right? You get to decide that, which is amazing. So figure out what your policy is. I will tell you, most businesses, industry standard is, service-based businesses anyway, will ask for a 30-day turnaround. Okay, a 30-day turnaround is super common. Some people will ask for a 15-day turnaround. Some people go 45 days turnaround. You get to decide what that is. Okay, if you are a service-based business, you know, and it's not one of those things like, oh, you have to pay me up front, everything up front, or you have to pay upon receipt. It just depends on the business. Everything's going to vary. Okay. But you get to figure out all of these things. So train yourself first. Once you have yourself trained, guess who you're going to train next? Your clients or your customers. Okay. They need training too. A lot of these people don't know how it is to work with a self-employed individual. Quite honestly, between you, me, and the keyboard, it's no different than working with any other business. Some of them don't understand that though. Some of them, you know, will look at us and be like, oh, well, you're self-employed, you don't know what you're doing. But that's not the case. You all are getting trained. You're getting to learn what the business practices are, so you will know what you're doing. So it's our role to educate them. Yes, I will ask you to sign a contract. Yes, I will ask for a deposit, whatever your policies are. Okay, you train them how your business operates. Even on things such as your office hours, like I mentioned before. If you work 9 to 5, let's say, but a client wants to have a meeting with you at 10 o'clock at night, no. You have every opportunity to say no. You do not have to take that call. And if you do, again, that's a choice. That's up to you. It may depend on the relationship with the client, may depend on where you are, you know, with the project. You know, are you behind? Is it your fault? Is it not? Those things are all, you know, up for determination. Absolutely. But, you know, it's important, though, to set those boundaries with them. You know, I even had to, one time I had a client who was calling me at 10 o'clock at night. This is where this comes from, right? And this was back in the days when we had fax machines, and I was single, living in an apartment. And so my office was like part of my bedroom, which meant my fax machine, this is how long ago this was, my fax machine was literally right next to my bed. So he's faxing me like at 5 in the morning. Remember who's not a morning person? Oh, I was pissed. And I was like, oh, no. This cannot happen. So I had to have a little conversation with him. And here's a tip for you. I ended up changing the voicemail on my phone to say, thanks for calling Copy Diva World Headquarters in sunny Overland Park, Kansas. My office hours are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Please leave a message and I will get back to you within those hours. Like, boom, instant training. Shouldn't be hard, right? He got the memo. But anyway, just simple things that you can do is you train yourself and then train your clients. Okay, that also goes along the lines of these payment terms that we just talked about, whatever you set for yourself. Like I said, it's standard practice for 30-day turnaround, depending on what your business is, but you get to dictate how your business operates, not your client, not your customer. Let me tell you a story. There is a very large ad agency here in Kansas City who is very well respected. I personally had not worked with them in probably 14 years because back then I had finished up a really, really small project and it took them more than 4 months to pay me, I kid you not, $125. I had to go knocking on the door of the accountant's office to get paid. It was ridiculous. And it was because they told me, oh, sorry, we haven't been paid by our client yet, so we can't pay you. Oh, bullshit. I'm sorry, pardon my language, but bullshit. No, you are one of the biggest ad agencies here in town. You have the money sitting around. Why should I have to wait for your client to pay you? I'm not a financial lending institution, and neither are you. Okay, so of course, I'm not knocking on their door all of these years because I don't want to work with somebody like that, somebody who doesn't respect their vendors enough. I mean, of all people, me, the little solopreneur, needs that money and that cash flow more than them. And that was just silly. Here they come. This was a couple of years ago. Here they come and they're knocking on my door and they're like, Julie, we have this project coming up. We want you to work on it. Can we reserve your time? Yes, absolutely. And so I send them my estimate. They don't sign it. Ooh, red flag. But they respond in an email. Okay, this sounds good. Well, great. So then I sent them my contract and my invoice. That's my request for deposit. And the gal comes back to me and she's like, yeah, we don't sign contractors' contracts and we don't give contractors deposits. And of course, red flag, right? And I'm like, that's not cool, right? And she goes, well, we have a contract. Will you sign ours? And I was like, well, maybe. Why don't you send it over and let me take a look at it? My father was an attorney. He taught me well. I do not sign anything without looking at it. And I'm so glad that I did because they sent over the 6-page contract agreement. And in it was just basic stuff that was pretty standard. But hidden in there was this one line hidden in there that essentially said, we, the agency, will not pay you, the contractor, until 30 days after we get paid by our clients. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not going through this again. Oh, hell no. And that's not standard industry practice. Okay, that is a large corporation taking advantage of a small self-employed individual and gaining interest on their money in the bank when we are the ones who need that money. So of course I sent the contract over to my attorney. I'm like, can you review this real quick? Am I wrong to think that this is BS? And he came back and he's like, Julie, don't you sign that as is. I was like, well, that's what I thought. And so he had me go back to them. And basically all I said was, hey, so read through your contract. As part of my negotiations, I love that term, as part of my negotiations, I'd like to change out this line. Instead of it saying that you're going to pay me 30 days after you get paid, it's going to now say that you're going to pay me within 30 days of receiving my invoice. And the guy was like, okay, no problem. Okay, no problem. Why do you have it in there in the first place then? Anyway, total BS. But you see, I got to dictate my terms and I got to figure that. I got to renegotiate my contract. And it ended up all good in the end. But moral of the story is don't let clients take advantage of you. Don't let them bully you. You have every right to own your business and own your policies and own your procedures. Okay, what that is. Here's another story. There was a company, it was a architecture, construction, design, build kind of company. Again, this is a few years back. I had a contract with them. Everything was good. And I met with them. It was probably 2 weeks before they needed to present something, right? They had this big presentation they had to give. And they're like, okay, we're going to give you all this information and we want you to, I don't even remember what it was, but we don't want you to write this thing for us. So we have it ready for our presentation. Okay, no problem. Well, I'm waiting for the info and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. Here we are the night before the presentation. Mind you, it's a holiday. I'm over at my family's house, my parents' house. We're having a big family dinner and everything. And here comes this email. Okay, Julie, here it is. If you can crank this out overnight and have it ready for us so we're ready to go at 8 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? What's that old adage? A lack of preparation on your behalf does not constitute an emergency on mine, right? So of course, like, oh yeah, sure, I am happy to cater to you, no problem, and stay up all night and burn the midnight oil, but it's going to come at a cost. And we'll talk about rush fees in a little bit, but they didn't like that. Oh, no, you're going to do it at the price that you quoted us. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. And this designer that I was working with was like, oh, Julie, just chalk it up to the experience. I'm like, oh, hell no. Like, we treat people how we want to be treated. And that was not acceptable in my book. Okay. You get to dictate the terms of your business. Again, don't let clients take advantage of you. You get to train them on how things work. Just because you work for yourself doesn't mean you're available 24/7. You have to set that boundary. All right. Establish these clear expectations. Talk about deadlines and when you will be available to respond and review things. Even talk about in your contract or in your estimate, like how many revisions you might have. This is all very important to get this all like nailed down in writing so you have something to fall back on in case there's any questions down the road. Discuss things that may pertain to you or may not, but things like intellectual property, for example, or what happens if their invoice isn't paid in full. Like all of this should be kind of laid out on the table ahead of time before you even start working with this company or this individual. And you can do that by having it in a contract. You can have a conversation with somebody. You can put it in an email. I know some people have it like as an FAQ on their website, how do I work, kind of thing. Whatever the case may be, just make sure that you are educating your clients along the way. Okay, so you've trained yourself, you've trained your clients. Guess who's next to train? This is something that goes often overlooked, but it's so important. It's your family and friends. Okay, so we talked about this. If you have a spouse, a partner, a roommate, or kids or pets or whatever, I know pets are kind of hard to train, tell them what's going on, they don't understand. But everybody else, you can try and establish that boundary. Okay, like for example, my husband also works from home. We have like this unwritten communication that basically says, if our door is closed, don't bother me, right? My door's closed, his door's closed, don't bother me. Like I'm busy, right? I'm in the middle of something, don't bother me. How often might you find yourself where you're in the middle of something and somebody comes in and again, takes your focus away from something so important? We've got to maintain focus if we want to kick ass and repeat. So we've got to set these boundaries. We have to set these expectations with everybody else. Now, I know if you have little ones at home, that's probably a little, that's probably going to be a big ask, but do what you can. Maybe you put a sign on the door. Maybe it's one of those little do not disturb signs that you put on the door, or you bribe them with a video or something. Hey, give mommy like half an hour or something so I can go get this done. Whatever trick you use, I'm not here to judge, right? But adults for sure should still be able to respect your boundaries and your wishes when it comes to stuff like this. Ask them to leave you alone. Ask them to not have that expectation that you're going to get chores done during the day or get the errands run during the day or whenever your office hours are. Okay. You've got to set that expectation. Same thing that goes with other family members or friends. Think about like phone calls that might come in or emails or text or social media messages, right? Unless they're urgent, there's really nothing that says that you have to respond to them right away. Remember, have that focus so you can be as productive as possible and get done as much as you can get done. This goes for even like people who might call you and want, I call it like play dates, but really like I have friends who are like, hey, let's cut out, let's go to the movies, or gosh, it's beautiful outside. Let's go grab a margarita and sit on a patio somewhere. Yes, that sounds amazing. I would love to do that. But wait, I work till 5. Can we meet after 5? Okay, see how I establish that boundary. Yes, I would love to do that, but I have work to do. Now, I'm not saying you can't do that every once in a while. Again, that's one of the pros of working for yourself. You have that flexibility. You can do that, but I would encourage you not to make that a habit and to train your family and friends to not make that an expectation, that anytime they call that you're going to jump out and go out for drinks or something. Very, very important that you keep that in mind. And here's a great story that will share why. I don't know about you all. I love my mother. I adore her to death, but she will call me in the middle of the day and talk about absolutely nothing for 45 minutes. Anybody else? Like, I get it. She wants to connect. She wants to bond, but it's not important. You know, I much rather do this after hours or on the weekend because right now it's pulling away from my business. So again, this goes back several years, but it's hilarious. So this was when I was in my apartment and still had my home office line and my cell phone. She calls my home office line. There was caller ID then. She calls my home office line. I'm like, I'm working. I'll let it get to voicemail. And she doesn't leave a voicemail. I'm like, that's weird. Okay. So then I fully expected her to call my cell phone, and she did, but didn't leave a message. Well, that's really weird. Well, maybe it's just not important. But then she calls again on my home office line and doesn't leave a message, and then calls my cell phone again and doesn't leave a message. Well, what do you think is going through my head right now? That it's an emergency, right? And so of course, then I drop what I'm doing. I call her back right away. Mom, is everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine. I thought, God forbid, my dad was having a heart attack or something, right? And I was like, is dad okay? Yeah, dad's fine. And she's like, what are you doing? And of course I'm thinking, what the hell do you mean? What am I doing? I'm working. It's the middle of the workday. I'm working. And she's like, well, drop what you're doing. Why, Mom? Why do I have to drop what I'm doing? Because there's a meat sale at Price Chopper. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I have to drop what I'm doing in the middle of the day because there's a sale at my local grocery store. Got it. Okay. Long story short, Mom and I had to have a little chat. Mom, do not call me during the workday unless it is super important. You can call me during the lunch hour. You can call me after hours. Heck, you could call me before work, but we both know that's not going to happen because neither of us are morning people, right? So she does call now during lunch, and I tell her, okay, I get it. You might forget something that you want to tell me. Just call and leave a message. That's all you have to do. Just leave me a message. Hey, call me back, Julie. I got something to tell you about Price Chopper. There, fine, perfect. Okay. But I had to train her. Mom, please treat my job as though I were going to work in a regular office and that you can't just call and disturb me in the middle of the day. Okay. You have to train people how to treat you, because by what you allow is what they will expect. All right. So I think now is probably a good opportunity to do our next poll here. I want to know, what areas do you need help with?
All right, I am going to get that launched. It's a good opportunity to make sure we're all awake too. I really, really love that last section there. I think, I hear that from my husband a lot, which is, well, you're here all day. Why does the house look like it does? And I'm like, well, we have 3 cats, 2 dogs, and 2 children, and I'm working. They do tend to forget. So it's, luckily not all of them are here at all at the same time every day, but some days they are.
Yeah.
With, school, virtual school this year, and cutting back on daycare costs, it's hard for working parents to find that balance. So kudos to you for talking about that, for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's an excellent point. This pandemic has given us even way more challenges when it comes to asking for that privacy and having to do with the homeschooling. So yeah. Oh, good. And I'm glad you found the poll. Yeah, that's definitely something I am not envious of. And kudos to all of you all who are doing it out there. All right,
I have a lot of friends who have one that has 3, under 3 or under 5, and they're trying to, or they've got 4 in school that, especially if they're in the younger grades, kindergarten or first grade. And it's just like, how do you keep those kids focused and do your business? It's been a rough year for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm sure everybody's suffering in some capacity, whether it's the parents or the children, yeah, or the job or the business, right?
Yeah.
Here we
All
go.
right. We've got 12. We've got 75% of people have voted. So I'm going to go ahead and end this.
Okay.
This is a pretty good spread, though, but planning is our lead on this one.
Yeah. That's actually something that's been really popular in my coaching business and in my classes at the Art Institute is developing a business plan, a marketing plan. I think people are really intimidated by them. So a little hand-holding is always helpful, for
And
sure.
then we've got right behind it, really, it's a pretty good spread, but branding and self-promotion, finding and keeping clients, paperwork, and process and system and time management. So yeah, that's got a really good spread there for you to discuss. So I'm going to take these off the screen and let you have fun with all of that.
Well, good. Well, we are definitely going to address many of those issues today. So you are all in luck here today. Let's go ahead and dive into pricing. The one thing that nobody needed help with, right? Pricing. I love pricing. Pricing is my favorite. Kidding. Okay, so here's the deal about pricing is that there's really no good answer for this, and you'll see these gurus or experts or whatever online. It's like, here's how you figure out this formula, here's how you figure out what to charge. But there's a problem with that. And I'm going to talk about that. So there's a lot of variables that come into play. Not everybody or everybody's service or everybody's product is created equally. We are comparing apples to oranges. It's going to vary by your experience. How much experience do you have? What is your talent level? Are you top of your class or bottom of your class? You know what I mean? In the industry. Are you an award-winning individual? Are you in demand? Is your phone ringing off the hook or not? And this is also something that oftentimes these formulas don't take into consideration is cost of living. Do you live in Kansas City? Do you live in New York City? Because cost of living is very, very different. And if you go online and say, okay, well, what is the average going rate for a freelance calligrapher? Let's say that, right? You're going to get the nation's average. Well, that's taking into consideration those New York City prices and San Francisco prices, which we all know are going to be way more than what Kansas City can command to charge just simply because our cost of living is so good. Okay, so we have to keep this in mind. Now, I will tell you that there are worksheets that you can find online, and I'm going to show you a couple. They're really small here. Hopefully you can blow them up a little bit. If you want these later, just email me. I'm happy to send you that. Or you can do what I did and do a simple Google search, hey, finding your rate worksheet. This worksheet on the left is your cost of doing business. What expenses do you have every month? You'll find some that have cost of living expenses that you figure in, your rent or your mortgage, your utilities, what you need for food, for insurance, for your car, all those different things. Yes, those are all very, very important factors to consider. Yeah, you got to pay the bills. And then, of course, what do you want to earn? What do you want for entertainment? And, yes, you have this car, but do you want that nicer car? All of these things to consider. And then you take this cost of business in this example here, and then there's 3 different formulas you can figure out on the right to determine what your hourly rate should be. Okay, great. Well, not everybody charges an hourly rate, so that doesn't help. And again, what if I have a really high cost of business or a really high cost of living, and so therefore it comes out to a really high hourly rate, but what if I suck at what I do, right? I mean, let's be real. Some people are in demand, some people aren't, and sometimes there's a reason why, so just like they always say, right? Not all doctors graduated at the top of their class. It is what it is. Okay, so it's our job to figure out where we fall, what our position is in the industry. Okay, do we have all of that talent level? Are we in demand? Are we winning the awards? Whatever the case may be. My best piece of advice here in determining your rate, whether it is an hourly rate, a project rate, a day rate, whatever the case may be, is to find a mentor. Hey, SCORE, that's a great plug for SCORE. But to find a mentor, find somebody, hopefully, who is doing what you do, but maybe has a few years ahead of you, and who would be willing to share what they charged when they were in your shoes. I feel like that's going to be your best bet. And then, so you ask your mentor, but you have to keep in mind that whatever it is that you're charging you have to remember that your work has value. Okay. So be sure to charge what you're worth. I know some people will say to me, some of my coaching clients come to me and they say, hey, well, yeah, I've been working at, let's say, Hallmark for 20 years. I have all of this great experience, but I'm new to freelancing, so I don't feel like I can charge that much. Yeah, what? Of course you can charge that much because your talent level is there. You are the upper echelon of talent. You're coming out of Hallmark. You're telling me you don't have any talent? Oh, come on. So you've got to figure out what your place is, and then remember to charge what you are worth. Okay. Just keep all of that in mind. Let's see, what else? Going on about pricing yourself or if you want to feel cool about it. You have to remember too, that it's not about just the amount of time that you spend working. It's also your talent and your expertise, it's your skill, and so many more factors that come into play. There's some meme going around out there, and it's something like, oh, I'm not charging you this for the time that I spent on this project. I'm charging you for the 4 years in school that I went to learn all of this stuff, or the 10 years experience that I have that got me to this point here today where I can do such kick-ass work for a shorter amount of time because I'm quick at it and get you the best possible results, whatever your business may be. Okay. So keep all of that in mind. Once you determine your rates, test it out, see how it goes. See if you get any pushback or not. If you're getting a lot of pushback, well then yeah, it's probably time to lower your rates. If you're not getting any pushback at all, it's time to raise your rates. But if you're getting pushback every once in a blue moon, you're probably at the right spot. Okay, so keep that in mind. You test your rates out, figure it out, and let it go. Do maybe a 6-month test and see how it goes. See if you get any pushback and just kind of gauge it in that regard. I have people call me every so often and they demand to know an hourly rate. And I always think that's so funny. Again, I'm at the point now where I'm like, dude, if you're going to demand something like that, then obviously you are not the right client for me. And I can easily walk away and go find somebody else. But like as a senior level writer now, they're comparing me to people right out of school, or they're comparing me to somebody on Fiverr who is way overseas who can charge $8 an hour. I can't compete with that, nor do I want to. But you also get what you pay for, So there's a big difference here. They're comparing apples to oranges. And so that's why I personally got away from the hourly rate and started charging by the project instead, because it's the value that comes with the territory. I'm not charging for the time that I spent on the project. I'm charging for my experience, for my talent level, and for the results that they're going to get out of it. Okay. Don't be afraid to charge additional fees. This may be applicable to some of you and maybe some of you not, but keep these in mind that these are all standard practices for you to consider. You don't have to do them, but I'm just sharing them with you in case you want to. One of which would be, of course, a late fee. What if somebody's late in paying your invoice? Remember how I said the standard was a 30-day turnaround on invoices? Well, can you charge a late fee after that? Yeah, you can. Personally, I think you should, but it's not much that you can charge. In the states of Missouri and Kansas, and I do believe this is nationwide here in America, that you are allowed to charge, you ready for this? A whopping 1.5% every 30 days. 1.5% of your invoice. You can charge that for your late fee. I know some people are like, oh no, I'm going to charge 10%. Well, you can try, but that's not legal. Okay, 1.5% every 30 days, which adds up to 18% per year. That is what you are legally entitled to charge. Will everybody pay it? No. Do you want to work with those people in the future? You have that opportunity to walk away. Okay, that's up to you. Personally, I prefer to work with people who abide by their commitments, the contract that they signed that said that they're going to pay me within 30 days. I don't think that's unreasonable at all. I had one client who said, well, I don't like late fees. I said, well, I don't like you being late. Problem solved, right? Don't be late. It's not that hard. It's no different than like, what if your Visa bill comes due or your utility bill comes due? And they charge late fees. So what's the difference here? We are also service providers, or I guess some of you are product providers. Not much of a difference there. Okay, Rush fees. I mentioned this earlier. You can set a policy to charge a rush fee. My personal policy is anything that is same day, overnight, over a weekend, or over a holiday, I'll charge either time and a half if I'm doing an hourly rate, or if I'm doing by the project, I'll do double of what the project estimate was. Okay, you can totally do that. Like that guy who wanted me to burn the midnight oil just because he didn't have his shit together and he's giving me his product, his project at the last minute. Yeah, I am entitled to charge extra for that if he wants me to do that. Absolutely. There's other fees such as a kill fee or a cancellation fee. Maybe you start the project and then something happens on their end through no fault of your own. Maybe it was an upper management decision, or maybe, I don't know, they ran out of money or whatever. In those cases, most of the time, I would think that your deposit would cover any time or effort that you spent on the project already. If not, you can always add in a little bit extra to cover that. Like, you know, hey, this client thought that they were going to have 30 hours worth of work for me this week. We only ended up with 15. I can't, in good faith, charge them for the full 30. However, I set aside all of that time. I cleared my schedule. I told other clients no for that one client. So yes, absolutely, I can charge a kill fee or a cancellation fee and get a little bit more money on top of that to make up for that. Okay. Jazz has a question. Can you charge 1.5% times 2 if it's 60 days? Yeah, excellent question. So yeah, every 30 days, that number can go up. So 1.5% every 30 days and added on top of whatever it was from that first invoice, that first late notice. Personally, I will let it go probably 3 months before I take any, you're welcome, before I take any other action. But I let it go 3 months, especially right now, man. I mean, a lot of people are suffering with this pandemic, and you know, if they explain to me cash flow is tough, you know, maybe we'll work out a payment plan or something, but I try and have some sort of communication with them. But if they go radio silent and I don't hear from them, you know, again, I try and have some empathy, like, oh gosh, do they have COVID and they just can't even answer emails right now? Or are they really mad at me, or they don't want to work, or they don't want to use the piece that I wrote for them? Like, it could be a litany of different things, right? Different reasons. So I try and go in with an open mind and an open heart, but then at the end of the day, you got to play a hard ass because you got to get paid, because you are worth something. Your work is worth something and you deserve to get paid. So it's that fine balance, right, of getting paid, but having some empathy in the meantime. Okay, so don't be afraid to charge those additional fees, whatever they may be. Maybe even it's a matter of a referral fee. Maybe you bring somebody else in on the project whom they wouldn't have known otherwise. In my case, for example, as a writer doing advertising, obviously I don't do all the advertising marketing pieces. I'm not a designer, I'm not a photographer, I'm not an illustrator or a social media pro or a web developer, right? It takes all of these moving parts to put together some sort of advertising or marketing piece. So if I refer somebody, hey, let me bring in my buddy Joe here to do the design and Matt to do the photography, I could charge my client a referral fee on those. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it's just something extra because I provided that additional value for them. Okay, so things to keep in mind. And then, of course, give yourself a raise every so often, just like you were working any other job. You know, maybe it's every year. You give yourself, you know, a percentage or a dollar amount raise every year, but don't be afraid to give yourself a raise every year. I have done that most every year for the past 22 years, except for, I will tell you, there's been a couple of times, one of which was 9/11 when the economy tanked, one of which was 2008 when the economy tanked. As well as this year with the pandemic. All right, just you have to keep things in mind, because how hard would it be right now when I know my clients are already struggling to go to them and be like, oh, by the way, I raised my rates. Like, I just can't do that. You know? So I'll wait. I'll wait till next year and hope that everybody can recover and we can get back to some sense of normalcy and get back to my regular schedule, my regular programming of giving myself a raise. But anyway, something to consider. Does anybody have any questions on pricing here? Or any other comments? On fees, on rates, on anything? No? Okay, well, I think right now is an excellent opportunity for us to take a 5-minute break. So how much should your raise be? Again, that's up to you. That's up to you. It depends if you charge by the hour, by the day, by the project. It can be a percentage. And it could be a dollar amount. That's totally up to you. But let's take a 5-minute break, go to the bathroom, go refill your coffee or your water, whatever the case may be. And let's regroup in 5 minutes. So at 2:23, we'll come back and we will hit the ground running and get into the nitty gritty of this stuff. Okay. Sound good? Alrighty.
Perfect. Thanks, Julie. You guys, will see you back here in just a few minutes. Julie, feel free to turn off your video camera while you're getting up and moving around. You guys don't have to worry about that. So we'll just see you back here. You'll see us back here in 5. Thanks.
Thanks. All right, I am back. Is everybody else back? Anybody? Hannah, thank you so much for your time. I got a lot for this. Yay, thanks, Jazz. I'm really getting a lot from this. Quick question. I have a moment to type. Good. Do you have any book recommendations for solopreneurs, whether it be self-help or marketing strategy? I want to get all the training I can. Hannah, remind me, what is it that you do? And I think somebody else raised their hand, but go ahead and type in the chat because I can't hear you.
Julie, I'm going to comment on this real quick. Down here in Springfield, we actually have a collaboration with the library district, and we are conducting an online virtual book club every month that's focusing on different book topics. So if you would like to join an actual book club so that you have other entrepreneurs to discuss with, we do a different book each month, and you can go to, I'll put in the chat actually here how to get there. It's completely free, as is usual with SCORE things, and we'd love to have anyone join us.
Yeah. So Hannah says, in short, I am developing technology for e-gift cards. Yeah, thanks for making that short because that would be way over my head with the tech side of things. You know, I have a couple of books. They're a little bit more geared towards the advertising and marketing side, but one of which I think would be super helpful is it's written by the founder of Freelancers Union out of New York, and it's called The Freelancer's Bible by Sarah Horowitz. I'll put that in the chat for you. The Freelancer's Bible. Sarah Horowitz. It's a pretty decent read, really easy to get through, but it has some excellent techniques and just talks about the different things that cater to anybody who's self-employed. So I feel like that's kind of broad and general enough for you. My personal favorite is called the Graphic Artists Guild Pricing and Ethical Guidelines Handbook. I know that's a lot that I just put out there. And for anybody on the creative side of things, I think it's really helpful. Let me drop that in the chat as well. Graphic Artists, guide. Because that's right, Guild, Graphic Artists Guild, Pricing and Ethical Guidelines Handbook. I think that's right. Google it, it should come up. But even though it says it's for graphic artists, like even myself as a writer find so many amazing, great tidbits in there. Even stuff like, how often should I follow up with a client if they haven't paid? And what are the right steps to do so? And how do I craft my letter? What should I say where I don't come across sounding like a total a-hole, right? It's got some really, really excellent advice in there. Thick book. I don't recommend reading that one cover to cover, but maybe going to the contents and like, oh, I need help with contracts or whatever, and going there. Those are my personal favorites. Great question. Okay. I want to keep going here because we do have a lot to cover, and I want to make sure that we are done by 4 o'clock, if not sooner, and you're welcome. So let's get back into this if we may. So we've talked about pricing. So of course, the next question is going to be, okay, now I know how to price myself. Well, how do I put together an estimate? Okay. And of course, here's my favorite graphic here. Do you want a good, fast, or cheap? Because you can't have all three. We got to make this work. I don't know if anybody's seen this, but I absolutely love this graphic. Again, this may be more for service-based providers than product-based, but let's take a dive into this and see. When I think product, to me, I mean, it could be that you work from home and sell a product, but I'm thinking somebody who sells products in stores, but I guess you could sell it online. Let's work with it. Let's see where we go here. Of course, coming up with an estimate is going to be hard in the beginning because a lot of people figure out their estimates based upon how much time it's going to take, right? How much value it's going to be given to the client or the customer. And you don't necessarily know that when you're first starting out. It's totally fair. It comes with experience. So it does get easier with time, I will tell you that. My best piece of advice is, aside from talking to a mentor, remember finding somebody who's been in your shoes before doing something similar, if not the same thing, but who wouldn't be considered competition, is when you do your estimate, don't just give one flat number. Like, let's just say for shits and giggles that, you're thinking it's going to be $600. Okay. Give yourself a range, give yourself like some wiggle room to work with. Okay. For easy math, let's say I charge $100 an hour. And I think if I'm doing an hourly rate, and I think that this project is going to come in somewhere between taking me 4 to 6 hours. Okay. So $600 would be that estimated rate that I was thinking that it might be. But I want to give a range because, again, I want to have some wiggle room. You know what? Let me bump that up. I think it's going to be $600. I want to give the client the range of $500 to $700. Put what I think it's going to be in the middle, because there's going to be a lot of unknowns, especially with brand new clients or brand new projects. It may be something like they want an extra meeting that you weren't planning on, right? Or maybe they, instead of the 2 revisions that you included in your contract, now they want 4. Like, you just don't know what's going to come up. You don't know if your client's going to be a pain in the ass. I mean, let's be honest. You just don't know these things. So allow yourself some wiggle room. And then, hey, if you come in on the lower end of the estimate, guess what? Now you're the hero. They think you're amazing. So keep that in mind. I always recommend doing a range when doing estimates, and I hope that helps you. Getting into the nitty-gritty as to what goes on to an estimate. Now, everybody's estimate is going to look different, depending on if you put it together yourself, if you use a software program like QuickBooks. There's QuickBooks Self-Employed, which is really helpful. There's a lot of programs out there that can put it together for you, or you can go old school and put it together in Excel or Word or whatever you want to use. Okay. But for the most part, they all will have these elements on each of them that you do. And I put the bullets on this next slide here. First and foremost, you want everything that you do, all your paperwork, to be branded. That means with your logo, with your name. You want your contact information on there. You want it to be really easy for people to get a hold of you and know who you are. So don't forget that important element there. Put the date on there. Consider even putting how long the estimate is good for. Maybe you only have your estimates good for 1 month or 2 weeks. Make sure you put that on there so they don't come back, I don't know, 6 years later. Hey, remember when you gave me that estimate? Of course, you're like, I've raised my rates a lot since then, right? You may consider that. Put down who the contact is. Is it, let's say you work with Joe Schmo at Hallmark. I'm just throwing a company out there that most people have heard of, I hope. Okay, so you put down Hallmark, and then you put your contact name is Joe Schmo. And you would type out their name, make sure that's on there. So you have some sort of record of who you have been in connection with, in talks with. You may consider putting an estimate number or a project number on there, depending on how you run your business. Okay, if the client has a PO number, they may give that to you as well to put on there. Be sure to put on there like what the project is for, or if the product or project, like what is it? What is it that you're doing for this person? Okay, let's say you are building this technology for e-gift cards, right, Hannah? Let's say you're doing this, and maybe somebody comes to you and they want you to do, I'm making this up, but they want you to do an app. Okay. So what all does that involve? So you put develop an app for such and such client, right? Well, what all does that involve? Again, most people don't understand what all goes into our respective jobs. So here's our chance to educate them, right? Remember, train your clients. So we educate them. Okay, this is going to take me some research. I got to do X, Y, Z on this. I do have to meet with the client once, twice, 3 times, who knows? I've got to conduct some interviews. I've got to do some testing. I've got to do this, that, and the other, right? Oh, and then I got to do the actual thing that I do, whether it's web development or writing or whatever. Okay. And then I got to allow for some revisions, because who knows, the client's probably not going to be super satisfied first time around. Get it? Okay. So let's allow some time for revisions. You got to, long story short, line list those out so they understand exactly what it is that is included in this estimate and what isn't. Okay, so put in, but I like to call that like your scope of work. What is all of that called? Okay, what is all entailed with your estimate? Figure in that administrative time, that meeting time. You get to charge for that, absolutely. There's no harm in doing that if you charge by the hour, right? Keep that in mind. You may consider putting down there in your estimates the deadline that the client has proposed. Okay, so you put that down there, and you put down what your deliverables are. What is it that you are going to owe the client by that deadline? Is it the app? Is it writing a script? You know, what is it that you promised to them? On the estimate, you want to have a signature line for your clients and a date line, so they can put the date of when they signed it, when they agreed to it. Okay, I also add in a little disclaimer, if you will, underneath the signature line that basically just tells them what's going to happen next. This is my FYI, hey, just a heads up, a contract and a request for deposit is going to come your way next if this estimate is approved. Okay, that's up to you if you want to put that on there. It's just something that I recommend for estimates. Any questions on that? With the signature line, here's something important that a lot of people don't know offhand, is that you want to make sure that the person who is signing your estimate is authorized to do so in that company. So say you're not working with an individual, you're working with Joe Schmo who works for Hallmark, right? Joe Schmo may not be legally able to sign contracts on behalf of the company. So we got to find somebody who is authorized to do so. So a trick here in doing that, I'm going to put this in the chat, is just to put a little, you know, how underneath the signature line, you may type out what their name is and what company they is. You might want to also add authorized signator underneath there. My attorney taught me this. Okay, and that way you will be sure that whomever is signing that is authorized to do so. Because there's a lot of people, you know, it trickles down to, I don't know, just the account exec or whomever, you know, the traffic person, I don't know, the administrative assistant. They may not be authorized to sign contracts, any kind of contracts, and an estimate essentially is a contract. Okay, so make sure you get that signed. Okay, so now you know how to put together your estimate. Again, it's going to look different for everybody, so no pressure there. Just make sure you have these added or these bullet point elements in here. Now we're going to go on to invoices. Invoices, yes, all hail the mighty invoice, right? Hey, you get paid. That part's amazing. Your invoice may look very similar to your estimate. Don't be surprised by that. But you get to determine when you're going to bill. So keep that in mind up front. Like, will you ask for that deposit? Will you bill them upon milestones as each milestone gets completed, or will you just bill them at the very end? Or will you have a hybrid of those three options? Okay, you have to determine that up front. My personal policy, and again, it's going to vary for everybody. My personal policy is I get 50% down up front and I get 50% when the project is complete, with a caveat. If that project goes on and on and on and on for months on end, right? And it's not my fault, it's their fault. And I'm racking up money. I'm like, well, I'm not able to get paid just yet. Well, that's not cool. So I have it in my contract where I get to determine if I want to then go over to a monthly billing system for any amount that I've incurred during that month. And that helps with cash flow, both on my end as well as on the client's end. Okay, so you get to determine that. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so invoices, let's get into the nitty gritty details. Again, very similar to your estimate, right? You are going to have on there your brand. Don't forget your brand, very important. Your contact information, very important. The date of issue, of course, you want that on there so you know when 30 days comes around or whenever your invoice is due. The amount that's due. You can line item this or not. Some people line item everything. Like, remember I mentioned in the estimate, okay, meeting time, research time, writing time, revision time. Like, you can line item that in the invoice. You don't have to. I will tell you, in 20 some odd years of working for myself, I've only had one client come back and ask me to line item things in that entire time. Okay, it's not necessary, I don't think. And it's a pain in the butt, you know, quite honestly, especially if you don't charge hourly. Like, we already had it in the estimate, so I don't know, that's up to you. Anyway, so make sure you have got the amount due. That's important, right? Your payment terms. Is it the 30-day standard? Is it 15 days? I know some people who even will put in like, hey, if you pay me within 10 days, I will give you 10% off. They'll give a discount. So you can consider something like that if you want to. That's okay. But make sure it's listed on your invoice so they know. Make sure the client knows how to pay you. Will they pay you by old snail mail check? Will they pay you by PayPal? Do you have a payment option on your website? Like, how should they pay you and where should they send the payment to? Like, if you want a snail mail check, you got to give them your physical address or a PO box. If you want PayPal, you got to give them the link there to your PayPal account or your email address. Okay, you just basically make it as easy as possible for them to pay you so you can get paid on time. That's the end all be all goal, right? And then, of course, if you do plan on charging late fees, if and when that should happen, make sure that is listed on the invoice so they know that if they don't pay within 30 days, that a 1.5% fee will accrue every 30 days. Okay, and that shouldn't be a surprise to them because it was in your contract. We'll talk about contracts later. Some people even put that little FYI on their estimates too. So just something you can put in there for sure. Okay, any questions on estimates or invoices before we head on? Comments? Everybody want to get paid? Right? Okay, so let's get into contracts. Yay, contracts. Contract? Who has a contract? It's so important to have one. And I know this is, I don't want to say a point of contention, but I know some people get scared by contracts, whether you are the vendor or you are the client. Just the word contract and the legal meaning it has behind them, oh, scary, right? But it's so important to have. It protects both parties, quite honestly, and it really helps eliminate any questions down the road. So it's super helpful to have everything in writing. I feel also that it makes you look more professional, makes you look like you have your shit together, like you know what you're doing. Right? If you ever have a client or prospective client who will not sign your contract, consider that a red flag. Okay, I've learned a few things in my 20 some odd years. More often than not, you will probably have issues getting paid with this client down the road. They don't want to do things the honest way. Okay, doing things with a contract is honest. Okay, and if they're not willing to sign that, then they're probably not willing to pay you down the road, or pay you in full or whatever, you know, the full amount. I do say that with a disclaimer, of course, every situation is different. I would say trust your gut. If it feels wrong, it probably is. If it is a big corporation with a great reputation, then most likely you can probably trust them. If it is a small mom and pop shop that is just starting up, if it's a startup, I would be very, very hesitant. Okay, just my own personal experience and what I've seen and what I've heard and, you know, throughout the years. Okay, trust your gut on this. Super important to have. I had a friend years ago, but at the time he had been freelancing 20 years. I was probably on, I don't know, maybe 11 at the time. And this ad agency in town comes to my group, the Freelance Exchange, and they hire 3 of us copywriters. And we're all friends, right? We all talk to one another and we're like, okay, great. We're going to go in, we're going to do this work. We were getting consistent work from them month after month. Now, 2 out of the 3 of us had a contract signed with the client. The third one, my friend Jim here, was like, he's old school, right? And I adore him and everything. He's like, oh, Jules, I don't need a contract. I do everything by old man handshake. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's hope that never comes back to bite you in the butt later on. And it did. So here we are, we're rocking and rolling. We're going through these writing projects month after month. Everything's fine. They're paying all the time until they're not. And they stop paying. So me and my buddy Steve, who had the contracts, were like, well, of course, we have to stop working for you because freelance isn't free and you don't get to, you know, get our services for free. And my buddy Jim, who didn't have the contract, was kind of in a weird place. And he continued working for them for maybe, I don't know, another month or so, but they still weren't paying. So finally, eventually, all 3 of us stopped working for them. Well, so Steve and I go and follow what was dictated in our contracts, right? We started by charging late fees and sending late notices or late invoices, and they're still not paying. 1 month goes by, 2 months goes by, 3 months go by, they're still not paying. You think Jim's been paid? No, Jim hasn't been paid. So Steve and I both were swapping stories, swapping notes, and we're like, okay, it's time to play hardball here. So we went back and said to them, hey, listen, do you remember what you signed in this legally binding agreement, in that you are going to pay us no matter what, and you're going to pay us within 30 days. So now you owe us for these late fees. Steve and I eventually got paid because we had something to fall back on. Jim did not. So he learned his lesson, unfortunately. Remember how I said in the beginning, sometimes companies don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to handle self-employed people, or they think that they can take advantage of you, but don't let them. Okay, you have all your I's dotted, all your T's crossed, and make sure that this doesn't happen to you. And the best way to do that is to be proactive, like with a contract. Okay. On the art side of things, on the creative side of things, I know there's a couple here on this call. You got to remember too that art in and of itself is very subjective. You know, some people are going to love your work and some people aren't. You think about, like, if you go to an art fair and you're walking through the tents or the booths or what have you, you don't go into every single tent because you don't like everybody's style of art. You go to the ones that you like. Well, it's the same thing on the creative side of things. Not everybody's going to like my writing, and that's okay. Hopefully I've done my job. I've been proactive. I've shown them portfolio samples up front, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to be able to please every single person out there. I know that's okay. But I also know that I'm going to get paid for my time, my value, my worth, my experience, all of that, no matter what. If they decide not to use my work at the end of the day, that's on them. Okay, I still get paid. And that's something that we have to consider when we go into this and run our businesses. Okay, so with that said, and again, it may not just be the creative side of things, and maybe the app development side, you know, who knows? So what happens if somebody doesn't like your work, or if somebody says, I'm not going to use it? Here's an analogy that I like to use. Let's say you go to a new hairstylist, hairdresser, barber, whatever the case may be. You go to somebody new whom your friend recommended, and you get in there and you don't like at all what they're doing. Right? Maybe instead of pink, this turns out red or something. And I ask the stylist to change it while I'm sitting there in the chair, and she tries as hard as she might, but she just can't get it right. Okay, so I think to myself, man, this sucks. I got to go someplace else to get this fixed. But before I walk out the door, I still pay my bill, right? I may not come back. I may not refer her to anybody else, but I still pay my bill before I walk out that door. It's the same concept. Okay, it's even like, let's say you go to the doctor, God forbid you get this horrible diagnosis. So of course you're going to go get a second opinion, because that's what we do. We don't like the diagnosis that we got from the first guy. So we're going to go to the second gal. We're going to go to a gal this time. Okay. But we still pay our first bill to the doctor. It's the same concept. Okay. They get paid, therefore we get paid as well. It doesn't matter. So be sure that you know what you're doing, you know your legal rights, and make sure you stand your ground when it comes to these kind of things. Don't let them take advantage of you. Okay, that said, let's get into some of the nitty gritty. Now, I am going to make the disclaimer that I am not an attorney. Okay, I'm just going to give you a few bits and pieces that I feel ought to be in your contract, but please, 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 if you make your own contract and don't have one developed by an attorney, please go get one, get your contract reviewed by an attorney. Again, make sure all your I's are dotted and T's are crossed, okay? So let's get into this nitty gritty. Put your brand on there. Remember, you've got this professional logo, you've got your name, your company name, your name, have your contact information on there. See, a lot of this stuff starting to sound familiar. It's gonna make you look more professional along the way. Okay, have your brand on there, have the date on there, the date of issue, of course, the client's contact name. Again, remember the client's company name and the client's name, your contact, your direct contact. You may put in here what the deliverables are. Remember, we talked about that before on the estimate. Is it, what is it that you are going to be delivering? Is it a service? Is it a product? And what is it? What are the payment terms? Right? Is it 30 days? Is it more? Is it less? Will you be asking for a deposit? Will you be asking for late fees if they shouldn't pay on time? If they don't pay at all, what happens? Will you turn things over to collections, go to small claims court? Like, all of this stuff ought to be outlined in that contract. I will tell you that section on what happens if they don't pay will so come in handy if and when they don't pay, because you can always go back and say, well, we can do this the easy way. Either you pay me now, or we can do it the hard way. And we can go through a collection agency, or we can go to court. And if you remember in my contract that you signed and agreed to, this legally binding agreement, it says that you're going to pay for court costs and attorney's fees. So that's on top of my bill that you already owe me. So which way do you want to go with this, right? That has saved my ass a time or two. And I will tell you, in my 20 some odd years, I've only had to go to court once. Every other time, it was just a matter of, hey, you remember what I had in the contract. And sometimes the clients don't believe me, and I have to bring in my attorney and have him essentially say the same exact thing. He drafts up a quick little nasty gram, as I like to call it, and sends it over to the client. Hey, remember what you signed? And I get paid right away. It doesn't happen often. I don't want you to think that I have a bunch of horrible clients or I'm a horrible writer, because that's not the case. There's just some shitty people out there, just like in life. It's the same thing in business. Okay. But the one time I did have to go to court was super random. I had been working on site with Payless Shoe Source up in Topeka for 5 years. I've been working with them part-time as a contractor for 5 years. I worked 2 days a week there, and I saw the writing on the wall. Like, they were never late in their invoices. And then all of a sudden, 1 month's late, 2 months are late, 3 months are late. Again, I can't work here in good faith anymore if y'all aren't going to pay me. So I'm seeing what's going on. I'm talking to my attorney, and he's like, Julie, rumor has it that they are going to be filing bankruptcy. And he goes, and if you want anything to come out of that, if you want to get paid any amount for what the thousands and thousands of dollars that you're owed, because I suggest you go file in small claims court. Oh, well, this is new. This is a whole brand new process to me. So I went through that, not necessarily for the amount of money, because it wasn't like 10 grand or more, it was under that. But I wanted to go through it just for the experience, if anything. And plus, of course, they owed me. So I went through the small claims court process, which you are not allowed to have an attorney at. And I found that interesting. And you're only allowed, in Kansas anyway, you'll have to check with Missouri, but you were only allowed to ask for up to $4,000 in small claims court. So I went through the process. I went to my court date. I was already, dressed and sharp, and I walk in there, and they no-showed. Nobody from Payless showed up. No representative, no attorney, no nothing. And long story short, by that time they had already filed bankruptcy. And so the judge is like, okay, so I have to put what's called a stay, a stay on the, bye Ann, thank you, on the case, which basically means it's on hold until they figure out everything that goes through with bankruptcy. And it took years. And I got sent all these packets of forms to fill out and whatnot. And I think I ended up with maybe $1,000 of what I was owed. So not much, but I got something. Anyway, long story short, I've only had to go to court once, and it was a random story. It wasn't something that would regularly happen, but I am glad I got that experience, so I can share that with others, so you all will be prepared. Anyway, contracts are very important. Make sure you have it in there. If you deal with anything like in the visual world, you may consider having a whole section on intellectual property, or if you have special processes, you may want to copyright those or trademark those. Again, I am not an IP attorney. I recommend dealing with one who is. Okay, that stuff is very, very important, like how your customer can use the product, or maybe you create a logo or something. You need to be able to have those rights, and for your customer to buy those rights from you. At the bottom of the contract, of course, you're going to have them sign it, right? They have to approve your contract. And of course, there's that date line again. Make sure it's an authorized signature that you want on there. But here's the deal. On a contract, you need 2 signatures. 2. One is your client's and one is yours. Every contract needs at least 2 signatures. So remember that. Have 2 signature lines. One is yours, one is the client's. And the dates may vary, depending on when they sign it. This can be done in person. Of course, now in pandemic times, we're all learning how to work online. So you can send it through various programs are available. There's DocuSign is one you might be familiar with. Or even you can send over a PDF, and there's a way for them to do a digital signature and get that back. So a bunch of different ways that you can work on that. Hopefully that helps. Again, have an attorney review anything that you put together. Even if you find a template on the internet, I would still highly recommend an attorney review it. Your situation is very specific to you, and there may be something that you miss. So just make sure you do it right. Okay, any questions on contracts? Thoughts? Anybody scared? It does get easier the more you do it. I know at first I was like, oh, scary. I don't want to give my customer a contract. You know, it's scary for me. It's going to be scary for them. But I can tell you what, over the years, now I just don't give a damn. And now it's like, okay, this is business. This is how it's done. Either you sign it or you don't, you know, and we move on. I will say, you know, for the larger businesses that I work with, they're used to contracts, so that's no big deal. But you find a startup or a small mom and pop shop, and they're probably going to be the ones who are a little bit more hesitant. So you can think about maybe softening the language. I like to use the word working agreement, or the term working agreement, instead of contract, because it just sounds a little bit nicer and less scary. So you might consider that as well. Okay, working agreement instead of contract. Okay, let's get out of boring stuff. Let's get into some fun stuff, shall we? I want to talk about branding and promotions. So let me get to that slide. Promote yourself. When you run your own business, you absolutely have to put yourself out there. Advertising and marketing is so important to your success, because how else are people going to know who you are and what you do and how you can benefit them, right? So let's talk about this. Let's start at the very beginning and let's talk about branding. Okay. Branding. What is a brand? Now, when I ask this question in live seminars, most often I will get somebody who always responds, it's a logo. Yes, a logo is part of your brand, but so is your company name. So is your company's theme or colors or font choice, right? There's all of these things that come into a brand. So what is a brand? Is it your tagline? Is it your voice? You know, what is it that makes up your brand? I'll tell you, let's take a step back. Yes, all of those things are included in a branding package, if you will. But what is a brand? A brand, in essence, is what or how people feel about you when you're not around. Okay? It's how people feel about you, your company, your work, your product, your service when you're not around. So how do you get to those people? How do you give them the right impression that you're trying to achieve? Well, you got to come up with all of these things that all play into your brand, your logo, your company name, your colors, your fonts, your theme, your tagline, your voice, right? All of these things. When you are creating your brand, something you want to keep in mind, and I know a lot of people forget this very important marketing element, but that is to determine and highlight your USP. Does anybody know what USP is? Write that down. USP. Anybody know? Probably not. This is a marketing term. I learned this in school way back when. But your USP is your unique selling proposition. Or you might have heard of it, if you've heard of it, as unique selling point. Okay, Julie, enough with the marketing jargon. What does that mean? Your USP is what makes you different / better than your competition. What is so truly unique about you? What is your selling point over your competition? So of course you want to look at your competition. You want to study the competition. What makes you different? Do you offer something that nobody else provides? Do you have a special process that nobody else does? Do you offer a certain product that nobody else does? Okay, it could be as simple as that. Do you have a super special technique that nobody else uses or nobody else in town uses, depending on where you consider your competition or your client base? Okay. Or it could be something as similar as, or as simple as, for example, I've got a design studio that I work with, and they only do print. They only work with paper advertising and marketing materials. They don't do web, they don't do broadcast like TV, radio, they don't do any of that. Okay, they specialize in print. That's their shtick, that's their USP. Okay, for me, my USP is my personality. has nothing to do with writing, has nothing to do with advertising or marketing. But I sat back and I looked at my competition. What made me different / better? And how can I sell myself to my potential customers that's going to sell? It's my personality. My customers know, my prospects know that they're going to have a good time working with me, that we're going to have fun. Okay. I have a fun personality. I'm not ashamed to say it. I'll pat myself on the back. I know this about myself. This is why I do presentations. This is fun for me, right? Okay. But I have that expressed in everything that I do. Look at my slides. Look at my logo. Look at my website. Everything is fun. Look at my social media. Everything is fun. Okay. So you want to express your brand on everything that you do. Of course, you'll have it on your business card. You'll have it on your website. You'll have it on your social media pages. But it can go beyond that, right? It could even be in your email address. Instead of having, I don't know, jcortez@gmail.com, well, that's kind of boring. Shouldn't that gmail.com be my website address at the end? What a great branding opportunity right there. And it makes me look more professional while I'm at it. Okay, so consider all of these things. Think about things too that may be a little extra, if you will. For example, I got some props here just by default. What about a cup? Right? See my logo on that? You see that? Okay. Maybe you do a coaster. Maybe it's the colors that you wear. Maybe it's the colors in your hair or the color on your wall. Okay. Maybe let's see. My laptop cover case here is in my brand colors. My laptop bag. Also, I have, what else? I have, these little pad folio things that you would like take to a client meeting. It's got a pad of paper in it. It's purple. See that? Okay. I know I go above and beyond when it comes to branding. Absolutely. But I also know people are really going to remember me. And they do. You could put your brand on a decal and put it on your car. You could have your license plate. You could have a personalized license plate. You bet I do. It says Copy Diva. Okay. So just think about all of these extras. Oh, even my phone case. I live in a branded world and people remember me. People love it and they remember me. Okay. That's the idea. You want people to remember you. You want to be top of mind so they think of you if and when the time comes that they need you, or maybe a friend of theirs needs you and they can refer you. Okay. Thanks, Daniel. Okay, so I realized that, what?
Before you go on that point, I want to do a shout out here to the truth in that. I put in there, be yourself, because I think that, a lot of us may have come from a corporate world or a nonprofit world where we had to put on a certain image, we had a dress code, and you may have always wanted to be yourself in a different way. And so I encourage everybody to really think about, part of it is your clientele. How do your clientele expect you to dress? But also, this is what I call one of the pros of being a self-employed business owner, because you get to be yourself. I wear Chuck Taylors, a bandana, and when I did my first presentation up on top of a big screen, I was wearing a 3/4 sleeve shirt I got for Halloween that said "Wicked Good."
Nice.
I think it's so important to remember as solopreneurs that we get to be who we want to be finally, instead of who someone else defines us as.
Yes.
So I'm just praise Julie on that one. Good job. Okay, I'll let you get back to it. I just had to throw that in there.
Yeah, I think there's so much to be said for being authentic, and people like to work with those who are authentic. And now's your opportunity to be who you really are and let that shine through. So great point. Thank you. Okay, so back to branding, and we're talking about logos and we're talking about websites and all of these different things, right? If you don't have a logo, please, for the love of all things purple, don't create it yourself. Or don't have your next door's cousin's boyfriend who's still in high school create it for you. Okay, remember that old adage that you get what you pay for? There's so much that goes into a brand. It's more than drawing a pretty picture. There's a lot of psychology that goes into it. And if you really want results, you ought to go with a professional. So you can find many graphic designers out there, graphic artists who would be willing to help you for a small fee, of course. But do your due diligence when you're looking for talent. Watch out for these so-called brand experts who don't necessarily have a stellar brand themselves. Look at their logo, look at their website, look at their social media pages, even look at their email address. Do they fully understand what branding means? If they don't show it in their own stuff, then they're probably not the right person for you, okay? Choose carefully. Remember that actions speak louder than words. But once you figure out your brand, you want to keep it consistent in everything that you do. Okay, so you're seeing a lot of pink and purple today. That's all I do, right? What about using free online logos? Of course, someone could probably use it as well. I do not recommend that. I just can't. Sorry. Again, there's a lot of psychology that goes into it, and you yourself and your business are very unique. You got to figure out what your USP is, right? And I highly recommend having something custom designed for yourself. Okay, so we've talked about branding. Once you have your brand established, of course, you're going to want to promote yourself. And so you can consider advertising and marketing. Of course, the traditional side of things when it comes to advertising and marketing, of course, you've got to have a website. Like, that's a no-brainer. You have to have some sort of online presence. I would have said that anyway, but especially today in pandemic times, and we don't have storefronts or anything like that. Like, well, I mean, there are, but you've got to have an online presence. Think about all these restaurants and these bars who are doing takeout and curbside right now. You know, how would they do it if they didn't have some sort of online menu ordering form? All right. Your business needs to be online one way or another. Okay. Absolute must. But then there are other things that you can consider, such as print ads. We mentioned print earlier. When I say print, I mean magazine ads, newspaper ads, newsletter ads. So things like that. Direct mail, what that means is postcards or a letter that you would send somebody in the mail. Okay. Email is huge, y'all. I would say email has a 40% higher conversion rate than social media. Everybody loves social media because it's easy and it's free, right? But email has a higher conversion rate. Conversion meaning converting your prospects into actual paying customers or clients, right? Novel concept. Use email. Maybe you do a monthly newsletter or something. Super easy to do. There are free options. You can use like MailChimp, or there's a bunch of different email marketing systems that you can look into. HubSpot, I know they have different pricing plans depending on how big your audience is. Do you have, 30 people on your mailing list? Do you have 3,000 people on your mailing list? How often are you sending out emails? And there's different benefits that come with each level that you can look at there. TV, radio, depending on what it is that you do, could you benefit by having some sort of broadcast commercial? Perhaps. You could do videos. Videos are huge right now, y'all. You could do flyers. You could do posters. It all depends on what your business is, where your target audience hangs out, what's going to be the right thing for you to do. These are just things for you to consider. Okay. Even consider exhibiting in trade shows if that's right for your business. Even right now in pandemic times, trade shows are going online. Okay, so we're still having these expos, but essentially just everything's virtual. I still highly recommend doing those because that gets you out in front of your direct or your ideal target audience. Okay, just a bunch of stuff to consider. We don't have time to go into each and every one of these right now for today, so I'm going to keep going on that. Next up is social media and PR. Again, this is less expensive, easier to do. Social media, again, is a whole nother conversation. And I know SCORE has at least two. I think there's Social Media 101 and 102 that Kimberly Beer presents for the Kansas City chapter of SCORE. Excellent. If y'all haven't attended, I highly recommend. She's great. Are you jumping in, Amy? Mary?
Well, I was going to say, I think we either have, we just did those and they may be up on the YouTube channel now.
Great.
Some recorded ones, and there'll be more next year as well. They've got some scheduled, and Kim is phenomenal.
Yeah, she's great. But my 2 cents on the subject matter is don't just like set it and forget it. You know, choose a handful of platforms that you want to be on. Is it LinkedIn? Is it Twitter? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram, TikTok, whatever serves your audience best. Remember, it's not for you, it's for your audience. Where does your audience hang out? Choose a handful of those and do them well. Don't just set it and forget it. Don't just set up a profile and never post anything. Okay, you need to post regularly. Well, what does that look like? Well, it could be once a day. I wouldn't go more than 3 times a day, but I would have some sort of activity at least every week. And it's not just posting. You got to remember, it's also about engaging. That means liking other people's comments, commenting on their stuff, DMing them, direct messaging them, sharing their stuff, putting stuff into your stories. I think every social media platform now has stories. I'm a little overwhelmed. It's like, okay, let's copy off of one another. I can't handle everything. Should you also have a Facebook page? I highly recommend it. Yes. My personal favorites are, and again, it depends on your business, right? But my personal favorites are Facebook business, Instagram business, and LinkedIn. I do have a Twitter account. For me, I'm not really finding as much luck with it these days as I did in the beginning. But it just depends on you and your business and how engaging you are on there, right? Are you providing value to your target audience? Are you letting them know what it is that you sell? Are you letting them know how your services or your products can benefit them? Okay. Again, if you set it and forget it, or if you only post like once in a blue moon and you say happy holidays and that's it, that's probably not going to get you very far. Social media is this really interesting creature in that you got to play the algorithms. Okay. And that means that the more you post, the more you engage, the more you like people's stuff, the more time you spend on the different platforms, the more likely they are to show your native posts to your followers. It's all a numbers game, unless you want to bypass the algorithm and pay for sponsored posts, which you can totally do. Every once in a while, I'll just throw $5 at a post on Facebook and it gets me in front instead of, I don't know, I've got an audience of maybe 1,000, maybe on my Facebook page. And I kid you not, I'll post something and I think, oh, it's going to go over really well, right? And I post at the right time that you're supposed to post it and all that jazz. And I get, it will show, I have like 3 likes and then it will show me this post was shown to like 30 people. 30 people out of 1,000, that's insane. It's because they want you to pay for it, right? So every once in a while, if I have something super important, yes, you can throw $5, $10, $30, it doesn't matter, but to get in front of more people. And again, the more people engage with your posts, the more likes, comments, shares, even saves like on Instagram, the more likely it is that your post will show up in the algorithm for other people. Personally, I don't like how this works. Even like Facebook personal side of thing, you have to go up to the top and hit most recent to see everybody's stuff. Otherwise, it's only going to show you what it thinks you want to see. Well, how do they know? I don't want to see Steve's kids' stuff, my Steve who I went to high school with or whatever. They don't know this, right? So you gotta learn to play the algorithms on that. Anyway, just keep in mind, you want to vary things up, right? Don't just post. I will tell you, people are very visual creatures. So just putting text out there usually doesn't do the trick. Adding a picture, a video, a GIF, something to engage people visually to get their attention, I think will really, really help. Consider writing some commentary along with a post. Maybe you write a LinkedIn article, or maybe you wrote a blog post on your website and you share that with some sort of visual on the social media platforms. So think about all of these things. Social media is a lot of fun. It's easy, it's cheap, but you have to stay on top of it. If you don't have the time to dedicate to something like this, consider outsourcing it. All right. That's kind of an overarching theme here. If you're not a pro at something, if you don't have the time for something, I highly encourage you to outsource it to somebody who does have time to do it. I know as solopreneurs, when we first get started, that sometimes it's scary to spend money because we don't know how much money we're going to have, right? You know, or maybe you're not making enough in the beginning, but see if you can figure out a way to budget for these promotions. You've got to spend money to make money. It's a really hard lesson to learn, but once you do learn it, man, will it start paying off. Okay, so learn from my mistakes of over 20 years and spend that money to make money. So that means budgeting a little bit aside every month for advertising and marketing. Okay. Consider all of that. Okay. So that's the social media side of things. The PR side of things, PR is public relations. All right. Think about what you can do to get in front of people, to get the word out about your business and what you do. Get in front of your target audience. What can you do? Public speaking, right? See this? You can teach workshops. You can host webinars. Maybe you get interviewed on TV shows or the news or a podcast even that you know your target audience listens to. Maybe you enter an award show. And if you happen to win an award, great. You can type up a press release and send it to the paper, to the Kansas City Star, let's say, and hopefully you'll get a write-up, or in the Business Journal or a magazine. Okay, think about all of these things that you can do, entering award shows or contests. You can write articles, like we just mentioned. You can write blogs. You can put it on your website. Anything you can do to further position yourself as an expert in your field or in your industry. What about getting referrals or testimonials? Oh, those are golden. Those are amazing. Let's say you finish up with a client or a customer and they're like, oh, this was the most amazing experience. Great. Hey, would you mind typing something up for me real quick and sending that over? And I can put that on LinkedIn, and I can put it on my Facebook business page. I can put it on my Google. You can do a Google review. I can put it on my website. Heck, I've even put testimonials in social media. I've made graphics for them for my social media posts. So think about all of these things that you can do for free, right? That will help further you get your name out there in front of the exact people, and then try and convert them into buying, to being customers of yours or clients of yours. What about volunteering or even going to networking events? I will tell you that I built my business on volunteering and networking, because people want to work with people whom they know, like, and trust. And by volunteering and by networking, that's the two best ways for people to get to know you, get to like you, and get to trust you. We're going to get into networking in a little bit, but I just want to throw that out there because the same goes to say for volunteering, whether you serve on a board or serve on a committee or in a leadership position, whatever the case may be, you are rubbing elbows with the movers and shakers. That's one of the most amazing things out there. You're getting to know other people. You will now become a referral source for other people. A funny thing happens when you volunteer. You know, this happened to me. I learned this super early on. I would get referred all the time. Hey, you need a copywriter? You know, you ought to go with my friend Julie. She's amazing at what she does. And I think to myself, gosh, have they ever seen my portfolio? I don't think so. They are just going off simply what I have done for this volunteer organization. Okay, let them refer me. That's great. Thank you so much. Okay, so consider that. That's an excellent way to get some PR. All of these tips here. Now, you've budgeted for all these promos, all right? But remember, you want to work with a professional. I cannot stress this enough. If this is not in your wheelhouse, please don't pretend that it is. And don't pretend that your neighbor's cousin's brother's dog or whoever, or high schooler, can do it for you. This is one area that you do not want to skimp on. It is so important to have a good brand and good promotions, good advertising and marketing. I can't tell you how much damage you can do to your business and your reputation if you don't have a good brand or you don't have good advertising or marketing. If you're putting out really shitty looking content, it is going to do a huge disservice to you, and you don't want that, of course, right? So work with a pro. Know your strengths and weaknesses. If that's not your strength, then outsource it to somebody who can do it well. Now, you're probably saying, great, Julie, okay, you've sold me on that idea. Now, where the heck do I find somebody to do that? I've got your answer. Okay, remember I mentioned early on, I started this organization in Kansas City called the Freelance Exchange. This is a free service that we offer to the community. You can totally use us and abuse us, but you can go on our website, fxfkc.com. You can find a graphic designer, an illustrator, a photographer, videographer, a PR pro, a social media pro, a copywriter. You can find all of these people. Their contact information is up there for you to see. Their portfolio samples are up there. You can connect with them on LinkedIn. You can visit their website. All of this stuff is a service that we offer to you for free. Okay. Then, of course, it's up to you to contact them. Do your research. Remember what I said. Look at their website, interview them, talk to them, make sure they're the right person for the job. And I would recommend talking to a few different people and not just one. Narrow it down to maybe 2 or 3 people and interview them and figure out who you want to go with. Maybe even get estimates. But remember, are you looking for a best possible price? Yes, of course, everybody is price conscious, but do you also want the best quality product in the end? Probably. Okay. So if you want to help the local economy, shop local, buy local, remember too that sure, you could go on Facebook or LinkedIn and ask, hey, anybody got a referral or a recommendation for a graphic designer? Sure, you can do that. And you'll probably get 101 different referrals there. So that's a lot to go through. I understand. But even if your best friend comes forth with a referral, keep in mind that everybody has a different style. Okay. So I know, for example, that my style is edgy. All right. I'm a little bit out there. Again, remember the fun personality? My style is not right for, say, somebody who is in the medical field or science field or super corporate conservative. That's not, we're just not going to be right for each other. So even if my best friend were to recommend me for something that's super technical, great, thanks, but we're not the right fit. Okay. So do your due diligence. Find somebody whose style that you like. Find somebody whose processes and their values, their business values, like mesh with yours. Okay, it's super important that you meet the person, you interview them, get to know them, and make sure that you guys are going to get along, and as well that you're going to like the work. So super, super helpful resource right there. And hopefully you can find somebody. If you don't have time to search, you can always send us an email. We're happy to send out like a little blurb to our members and have them respond to you. So just a little insider's tip there for you. Okay, so now that I got you sold on the Freelance Exchange, again, free resource for the community, let's get back in and talk about networking. Okay, because networking is huge. It's one of these, I don't even like to call it a necessary evil because I love it, but I'm also an extrovert and I understand not everybody is. But remember, one of the best ways to get business is to be known. So how do you be known? Well, so you go and you hit the networking scene, whether that's a coffee meetup or a happy hour or luncheon, whatever, or a program. Again, it's a little bit more difficult in pandemic times, but it's still feasible, right? There's still a lot of networking things going on online that you can be part of and get your name out there for sure. So what is networking? It's essentially the exchange of ideas with like-minded people. Again, remember, people like to buy from those who they know, like, and trust. You want to be that person. So where can you network? You can go to chambers, Chamber of Commerce, right? They have a lot of events. You can go to professional organizations like Freelance Exchange. We have events, or SCORE here. You can even do this online. You can participate in forums or in groups on Facebook or on LinkedIn, right? All of that comes into play. Oh, Jazz, I'm so sorry. I'm just seeing your message here. Would you add information of a referral on your website? Yes. I have referrals on my website, and I have the person's name and their company that goes along with it. I have their permission to put it up there, and I even have a little headshot that goes with it. So yeah, absolutely. I would recommend that for sure. Okay. When you go you're welcome. When you go to network, it's going to sound cheesy, but just kind of play along with me for a minute. You want to have your networking toolkit. Okay. So what goes into your networking toolkit? Of course, you're going to tell me number one is your business cards. Yes, absolutely. Don't leave the house without your business cards. I don't care if you're going to the grocery store, gym, dentist, what have you. Always, always, always have your business cards on you because you never know when the opportunity might come up to share one with somebody. Okay, number two, in your networking toolkit is you want to have an elevator speech prepared. Well, what is an elevator speech? It's essentially a 30-second spiel, commercial, about you, your business, your services, and how you can benefit others. Okay, So have that prepared, have it well rehearsed. You don't want to, be sitting there like, oh, I memorized this. What was it? You want to practice it enough where you have it be natural enough that it just kind of rolls off your tongue. But important to be prepared for when somebody comes up to you and says, hey, Julie, nice to meet you. Tell me what it is that you do. Okay, I have 30 seconds now to sell myself. I don't want to just say, hi, I'm a copywriter. Most likely, they're not going to even know what a copywriter is. They're probably going to think I go around and stamp these C's on things, for a different kind of copyright. I'm not an attorney. I don't do that. Can you get my book published? No, that's not what I do. So I need to have something prepared. What do? I'm a copywriter. Here's who I work with. Here's how I help them. Okay, here's the kind of customers I'm looking for. And then, of course, at the end, you want to have it as some sort of call to action. Hey, I'd love to keep in contact with you. Would you mind if we exchange cards? Or in pandemic times, would you mind if we exchange contact information or connected on LinkedIn? Okay, this is your elevator speech. Have that prepared ahead of time so you know what to say when somebody asks you that golden question of what do you do? Okay. Number 3 that goes into your networking toolkit is a firm handshake. Okay, now when I say firm, I don't mean death grip, but it needs to be firm and not super light, right? You want to mean business. So have a firm handshake, make sure you're making eye contact with the person, and make sure you smile. I know it's cheesy, but it's so important. If you are at an event or even online here, and you're sitting there and you've got this just grumpy look on your face and you got your arms crossed and you don't want to be there, like who's going to come up and talk to you? You want to be approachable, right? Look at people, smile at people, be approachable. The last thing that goes into your networking toolkit, any guesses? Anybody? Nobody? All right, y'all are going to laugh. This is a good one though. Would you suggest having brochures about your business attached with your business card? It depends on the event. Yes, your smile, absolutely. It depends on the event, Jazz. I think, in some respects, having a brochure, like if you're at a conference or something, if somebody has a bag that they can put your brochure into, I think that's okay. If you are at like a coffee meetup and people don't have a big laptop bag or whatever with them, then it's probably going to be really awkward and they might even just throw it out. So I would just have your business card on hand, and then that way they can put it in a pocket or in their purse or wallet or whatever. Okay. Yes, your smile. Absolutely. That needs to come into play in your toolkit. And the last but not least thing that you ought to have, especially for only for in-person events, is either mints or gum. Okay, and I'll tell you why. Because so many of these events that we go to have food or drink. Think about if you go to a coffee meetup and somebody comes over to you, you may be like, oh man, I got coffee breath, something fierce. Like, I don't want to talk to anybody, right? Well, you can pop in a little Tic Tac real quick or an Altoid, whatever your flavor du jour is, or brand du jour. You can pop that in and you'll be set. When your breath doesn't smell good, right? And then you don't want to breathe on anybody, you don't want to talk to anybody, and it affects your self-confidence. So be proactive, have mints on you or have gum on you. Same thing goes for happy hours. Oftentimes there's appetizers, which may have garlic or onions or something other delicious in there, but is really going to give you bad breath. So be prepared and bring mints or gum with you in advance. Okay. So we talked about eye contact. We talked about smiling, all very, very good. Keep in mind too, your body language. Remember I said you don't want to be, I don't know if you can see me, with your hands crossed. You don't want to be staring at the floor. Be approachable. Try not to have your hands in your pockets. Okay. Maybe you've got a drink in one hand or a coffee or whatever the case may be. And go in with an open mind, with open body language that makes you appear that you're approachable. If you go to a networking event and you're like, man, this is going to suck. I am not in the mood for this today. Guess what? You are going to have a bad time. I hate to say it, but if you go in being like, yeah, this is awesome. This is a party, or, I made myself a goal today. This is my ideal target audience and I'm going to make 3 quality connections today. Great. You're going to have so much more success if you have that kind of positive outlook. Okay. As opposed to, oh, I have to be here. I don't want to be here. Right. Right. Go in with a positive outlook. Be prepared with conversation starters. If you see somebody standing by themselves, wait, and you're there by yourself, what a great opportunity to go meet somebody. Your presence will be welcomed by them. Maybe it's that introverted person who doesn't know anybody and is afraid to break into a circle of people talking. So you go over and you strike up a conversation. They may be your next biggest, greatest client. That's amazing. And you can just, you don't even have to talk about business. You can be like, oh man, the weather is fantastic today, right? Talk about weather or sports or movies. I would stay away from anything controversial like politics or religion or vaccines, apparently. Be prepared. Have some conversation starters on tap, right? Even if it's like, oh, hey, how did you hear about this event? Or, oh, I see you work for such and such company. How long have you been there, right? So be prepared going into these things. Remember that it's not necessarily a numbers game. You want to make yourself a goal. And if you're an extrovert, maybe it's that you go and you meet 5 people while you're there. If you're an introvert, maybe it's 3. Totally okay. Know yourself, right? And know what's comfortable for yourself. But it's about quality over quantity. You want to find the really good people who are going to be either your best referral partners or your next best client. Okay. But even so, even if you don't walk away with your next best client, like you've made a new friend or you've made a new referral partner, and maybe this person can't use you and your services right now, but maybe even 3 years down the road, maybe they know somebody who could. You just never know. Or maybe somebody's new to town and they're looking for a dentist, and you were able to provide value by referring them to a local dentist. You just don't know when these things are going to come into play. And now you are a trusted person in the networking community. Okay. Remember, people like to work with those whom they know, like, and trust. Position yourself as though you are there to be of service. You are there to help them. It's not all about you. It's not all about your business. I mean, yes, we all know it is, but you have to position yourself the other way. Remember that whole concept of what's in it for me. That's what the person who you're talking to is thinking. Well, what's in it for me? Okay, yes, Julie does copywriting and coaching and teaching and speaking and blah, 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 all these things. What's in it for me? That's what I have to gauge the conversation on, and I have to flip the narrative. So this is how I can benefit you. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If this is scary to you to go by yourself, I totally get it. Take a networking buddy with you. Again, in non-pandemic times, or even to a Zoom call, man. Maybe you're going to a new event or a new organization. Maybe bring a friend with you. It's so much easier that way, especially like if it's a huge room, maybe even you could divide and conquer. I'm going to go to this group, you go to this group, and then, hey, if it makes sense, then you tell me and I'll go talk to that group too. And you can kind of meet more people that way. You just have to kind of gauge things and see what's right for you. Okay. So here's something that often people forget to do, and that's after the networking event. You got to follow up, right? You can't just grab their business card and let the cards start, making a stack on your desk here. You got to follow up with them, because otherwise, what's the point of networking? The easiest thing to do right afterwards would be to connect with them on LinkedIn. And I think that's almost expected nowadays, but send them a little note along with your LinkedIn connection request or invitation. Hey, it was so great meeting you at the SCORE networking event, whatever it was, right? I'd love to connect. Okay, great. So then they accept your invitation. Fantastic. Well, now what? Now you have to nurture that relationship. Well, how do you do that? Do you invite them to be on your email distribution list? Do you start following them on social media? Yeah. Okay. Do you do what's called relationship marketing? Do you invite them to a one-on-one meeting with you, but it's not necessarily a meeting. It's just like an informal get together. I want to know more about your business, you say, but really you want them to know more about your business. Okay. But you go in there and maybe you buy them coffee or buy them lunch or buy them a cocktail, whatever is your style. And you have this conversation. You're starting to develop a relationship. Again, this person may be your next best client. They may be your next best referral partner. Either way, it doesn't matter. You're still making connections. People who can help you find business later on down the road. And you want to have all of those people in your network. Okay. Any questions or additional thoughts on networking? Was my toolkit pretty cheesy? But it works. Don't forget that gum or the mints. I'll tell you, it comes in handy. It has saved my breath time and time again. Would you provide me with your email address? Sure. Thanks so much for being so engaging, Jazz. Been great. I'd be happy to keep in contact with you. There you go. Okay, so we went over a lot of stuff today. Hopefully you all took some great notes. I know after the fact, SCORE is going to be emailing you out a little PDF that I have put together, but also you can get this PDF. I have just like a simple 7 steps to rock your solo business. This is on my website. If you would like to go to my website at juliecortes.com, remember it's Cortez with an S at the end because I like to make things fun. Scroll to the bottom of my homepage and that's where you can find the free download. It is beautiful. It's pink and purple. You can print it out. You can put it on your bulletin board, your little dry erase board that's magnetic, hopefully. And it will have a lot of the different things that we talked about today that will hopefully remind you and motivate you to go ahead and rock your solopreneur business. Okay, that said, let's do a quick summary of everything that we talked about today. So, number 1, I want you to be bold. Get to know your stuff. Get to know how to run a business. Remember, you want to treat your business like a business, not like a hobby. So keep that in mind. Go know what you don't know. Put yourself out there. When it comes to your branding and promotions, create a stellar brand. Promote yourself wisely. All right? Be confident in your pricing even. Be bold about that. Be very comfortable. Once you've got that gauge figured out, that you tested it. Am I too high? Am I too low? Then you'll be confident in that. So go and be bold. Number 2, reminder, is to be brave. I know this is in particular a very interesting time with the pandemic, but go ahead and take that chance of solopreneurship. Just go for it. Yes, times are super weird right now. I get that, but why not make the most of them? I know many people might have this inner critic thinking, but Julie, what if I fail? Oh, but what if you succeed? Wouldn't that be amazing? Yes, think about the alternative. Think in positive terms. And if you do fail, so what? At least you can say you tried, and that is so much more than so many other people can say. And bonus, if you happen to fail in the middle of the pandemic, you have an excellent reason. We're in the middle of a freaking global pandemic, right? Absolutely. So keep all of this in mind. Change your mindset, flip the narrative, okay? Not what if I fail, what if I succeed? I'm going to be brave and I'm going to go out and I'm going to try and achieve my dreams of being my own boss, of being self-employed, of being a solopreneur. Okay, number 3 in our little summary section here, of course, is to be badass. I want you to get out there. I want you to take advantage of those networking opportunities. Get motivated and stay motivated. Remember that attitude and mindset is everything when it comes to your chances of success. Be optimistic, visualize success, be positive about things, and use these tips that we went over today to set yourself up for success. Go after your dreams with the fullest of intentions and rock that solopreneurship lifestyle. Thank you so much for having me today and for joining me on this SCORE workshop today. If there's anything I can do to help you in your solopreneurship journey, feel free to reach out. You can find me at juliecortes.com, or I'm on the social media platforms at Casey Copy Diva. Thanks so much, you all. I'm giving myself a lot of
I'm going to launch the evaluation so that SCORE can make sure that we gave good content, because no one here is already aware of the amazing, how good that content was. But I am going to launch that last poll if you guys don't mind doing that. And what I'd like is if you have questions right now and you'd like to put them in the chat box, Julie can answer some of those. Julie, I will just say that, first off, I feel so much better about myself as a solopreneur right now. Like, listening to somebody who's done it for 20 years, sometimes it's just really nice to know you're doing some things right. you know, when you're starting out. And, you know, as a solopreneur, we don't often have that mentor or someone who can tell us, here's the proper way to do it, that I've learned over years and years of experience and making those mistakes. And just really appreciate you sharing that 20 years of experience. So I feel really good about my brand now. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you guys ready for your branding? Are you got contracts is the worst. I'm going to go out there on a limb. I don't even want to talk. Like when you started mentioning contracts, I was in there putting up Christmas decorations, listening. All right. And yeah, I had a little heart palpitation and almost dropped an ornament. So contracts. Woo. Jillian, yes, there will be a recording. It will go out after. Probably we try to get them out within like 48 hours. Sometimes we're volunteers, so it takes us a little bit of time to do that. But it looks like I'm not seeing any questions coming in other than that.